I, Lu Hanzhou, have died 3 times. The first time, I died on the operating table, only to wake up to find everything changed. The second time, I died from my wife's betrayal. She forged my signature and took everything from me. The third time, I died on the wedding bed that once bore the weight of our vows, pushed into the abyss by the very person I loved most. But now, I'm back to the beginning of this deception. The wedding starts in 72 hours. Lin Warner, this time, your wedding will be unforgettable. I want you to wear the most beautiful wedding dress, stand on the highest platform, and hear me say, I do not want to. Then, I'll let you see for yourself what it feels like to lose everything. The light from the crystal chandelier was blinding. Lu Hanzhou stood on the altar covered in white roses, looking at the more than 300 smiling faces below, a perfectly measured curve on his lips. He held the custom-made diamond ring in his hand. The platinum band, which should have been engraved with LW, was now burning hot from the warmth of his fingertips. Mr. Lu Hanzhou, do you take Ms. Lin Warner to be your wife? To have and to hold from this day forward? For better, for worse, for richer, for poorer? The priest's voice seemed to drift from afar. Lu Hanzhou's gaze swept over the guests below the stage. In the first row, Lin Warner's father, Lin Guiqiang, was wiping sweat with a handkerchief, with Xunyu sitting beside him. The man wore a dark silver suit, his tie clip a limited edition, a smile playing on his lips, but his eyes remained fixed on the hem of Lin Warner's wedding dress. I do not. The 3 words fell like an icicle piercing a champagne tower. The entire hall was silent for 3 seconds. The sweet smile on Lin Warner's face froze, and she instinctively grabbed Lu Hanzhou's wrist. Hanzhou, what did you say? Lu Hanzhou shook her off, pulled a thin, black smart device from his suit pocket, and swiped his finger across the screen. The giant LED screen hanging behind the stage immediately lit up, displaying the surveillance footage from the hotel suite. The timestamp showed that at 11 p.m. last night, Lin Warner's wedding dress was crumpled and thrown on the carpet. Xinyu's silver-gray tie was wrapped around her ankle, and their intertwined figures were clearly reflected in the floor-to-ceiling window. Do you need me to add a voiceover to this video? Lu Hanzhou's voice was frighteningly calm. Or should I release the voice message you sent to Xinyu last night? After the signing tomorrow, Zhuzhou Group will be ours. Darling, you call this love? The audience erupted in chaos. Lin Guiqiang's chair tilted back, crashing to the ground with a dull thud. Xinyu stood up abruptly, his fingertips digging into his palms until his knuckles turned white. Lu Hanzhou, you're insane. This is a wedding. You're the ones who are insane. Lu Hanzhou pointed the terminal at the audience. The screen switched to an electronic document. The ink on the 3 characters Lu Hanzhou in the signature section was still wet, but the enlarged skin showed a slight tremor at the end of each stroke. Lin Warner, the person you hired to forge my handwriting is quite skilled, but he forgot one thing. I had wrist ligament reconstruction surgery 3 years ago, and the last stroke of my signature Zhou is always tilted 20 degrees to the right. On this forged document, it's a right angle. Lin Warner's face completely drained of color. Her wedding dress began to tremble, and her pearl headdress shimmered with fragmented light under the lamplight. Hanzhou, let me explain. Xinyu forced me. He threatened me, saying that if I didn't cooperate, he would. What would he do? Xinyu sneered, striding onto the stage and standing beside Lin Warner. His tone suddenly turned sinister. Lu Hanzhou, nothing you say will make a difference. The share transfer procedures are complete. Zhuzhou Group now belongs to Shun, and your shares will be wiped out today. The bigger the commotion you cause here, the worse your death will be. Lu Hanzhou looked at the couple standing side by side and suddenly laughed. The laugh didn't reach his eyes. It was as if he had suppressed the coldness of 2 lifetimes at the corners of his mouth. He snapped his fingers. The entire banquet hall's intelligence system emitted a series of synchronized beeps. A faint light illuminated beneath the plates in front of the guests, and all the decorative screens on the walls switched to the same image. A new group equity distribution chart. Lu Hanzhou's shareholding jumped from 0% to 67%, while Lin Warner and Shun Yu's shareholding percentages simultaneously changed to a bold red 0%. I forgot to mention, Lu Hanzhou said, tucking the terminal back into his pocket. His voice wasn't loud, but it amplified through miniature loudspeakers hidden around the stage, reaching every corner. Jiuzhou Group started using blockchain technology for equity confirmation 3 years ago. The paper documents in your hands are just decorations. The real smart contract is bound to my iris, voice print, and heart rate, as long as I'm alive and standing here. The equity restructuring I initiated 10 minutes ago through the Jiuzhou heart system has the highest legal effect. Shin Yu's face went from gloomy to pale. He pulled out his phone and frantically clicked. But the screen kept popping up red access denied boxes. Lin Warner finally broke down. She lunged at Lu Hanzhou, grabbing his sleeve, her nails almost digging into his wrist. How dare you? That's mine. You said Kyushu Group was our shared future. Our future? Lu Hanzhou looked down at her. Memories of his past life surging in his mind. The beeping of the ECG monitor on the operating table. Lin Warner calmly pulling out his oxygen tube after signing the papers. Shin Yu's profile as he smoked a cigar at the ward door. Those images, like shards of glass, were now embedded in his calm tone. Lin Warner, when I was lying in the ICU with a heart attack because of you, what were you and Shin Yu doing? Celebrating? Or were you already dividing up my office? Guests began to get up and leave. Shin Yu suddenly roared, loosening his tie and charging at Lu Hanzhou, that you're a fucking lunatic. I'll kill you. Lu Hanzhou stood still, as Shin Yu's fist swung towards him. A transparent, shock-absorbing air curtain rose from the edge of the stage, a newly developed civilian safety device by Kyushu Group, which Lu Hanzhou had personally ordered to be installed 3 days ago. Shin Yu's fist slammed into the air screen, his knuckles cracking painfully. The force of the impact sent him staggering backward, knocking over the champagne tower behind him. The sound of shattering glass mingled with the screams of the guests. Lu Hanzhou turned to face all the cameras. He knew there were 30 high-definition cameras broadcasting the wedding live, and at least 1 million people were watching. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Lu Hanzhou. His voice, transmitted across the entire internet via the live stream, announced that he was announcing the marriage and reclaiming all illegally transferred assets. As for the allegations of forgery and misappropriation of assets by Ms. Lin Warner and Mr. Shin Yu, I have submitted the complete chain of evidence to the International Commercial Arbitration Alliance. Everything that follows will be handled according to commercial regulations. He paused, his gaze returning to Lin Warner, who was slumped on the floor. By the way, you asked me yesterday why I suddenly changed the wedding hotel from Hyatt to Four Seasons. Because I needed the dome of this banquet hall to withstand a 12-meter-high holographic projection. That surveillance video was actually an AI-generated demonstration, designed to test the emergency response capabilities of Kyushu Heart in large public spaces. The real evidence. He bent down and pulled a yellowed photocopy of a medical report from a hidden compartment on the stage. It was the original file from 3 years ago, the one you forged to make me appear incapable of civil conduct. Lin Warner, you even got the date of my surgery wrong. I was admitted to the ICU on July 16th, not September. Lin Warner finally screamed. The sound pierced the ceiling. She ripped off her veil, pearls scattering everywhere. She slipped and fell, tearing a gash in her wedding dress. Shin Yu stood to the side, clutching his wrist, his eyes shifting from anger to fear, finally settling into a numb, blank stare. Lu Hanzhou stopped looking at them. He walked behind the stage, all the screens simultaneously turning off, plunging the banquet hall into a brief darkness. When the emergency lights came back on, he had already left through a side door. Outside was the hotel corridor. The neon lights of the city reflected on his face through the floor-to-ceiling windows. He took out his terminal. The screen showed that the 9 provinces heart system was operating normally, and all assets had been returned. He activated the lock command, completely resetting Lin Warner and Shin Yu's access permissions to 0. Behind him, chaotic arguments, cries, and the clatter of overturned tables and chairs echoed from the banquet hall. Lu Hanzhou didn't turn around. He glanced at his watch. Exactly 72 hours since his rebirth. In his past life, he died from a medical malpractice caused by Lin Warner's forged medical record. In this life, he rewrote his ending in 72 hours. His phone vibrated. It was a message automatically pushed by Kyushu Heart. 3 private accounts under Shin Yu's name had attempted to transfer funds last night and had been frozen by the system. Attached was a location-sharing message. Shin Yu's limited edition sports car was currently parked in the East City Airport parking lot. A pigeon on its hood, Lu Hanzhou put his phone back in his pocket and walked towards the elevator. He needed a glass of ice water before dealing with the next matter. Before the elevator doors closed, he heard the sound of shattering glass again from the banquet hall, and Lin Wanner's hysterical cries that he couldn't. It couldn't be. I clearly. The elevator descended, the numbers flashing. Lu Hanzhou closed his eyes. 72 hours ago, he lay on the bed at the respawn point, his heart rate just returning to normal from zero. The neon-lit night outside the window was just like that then. He touched his chest, feeling the strength of his heart beating again. And his first thought was, this time, it's my turn to be the one making the moves. The elevator reached the first floor, and the moment the doors opened, he opened his eyes. Several flustered senior executives of the group stood in the lobby, clearly having rushed over after receiving a system alert. Old Zhou, the leader, stammered, President Lu Daowei. Lu Hanzhou walked straight past him, patting old Zhou on the shoulder. Tomorrow morning at 9. Headquarters conference room. Everyone be there. Those who are late, don't bother. He stepped out of the revolving door, the night wind brushing against his face. The commotion from the hotel's top floor could be faintly heard behind him, like background noise before the curtain fell on an absurd silent play. Lu Hanzhou hailed a taxi. As he sat in the back seat, he glanced at the Four Seasons Hotel's magnificent golden entrance through the rearview mirror. The light from the crystal chandeliers shone through the banquet hall windows, casting shadowy figures. Driver. To Jojo building. The car merged into the traffic. Lu Hanzhou leaned back in his seat and turned off his terminal screen. He knew that tonight's live broadcast was just the beginning. There were countless hidden threads behind Lin Wanner and Shun Yu. Those partners who had long coveted Jojo Group. Those department heads who had secretly received benefits from Shun Yu. In the days to come, he would use the heart of Jojo to dig them out one by one. But at this moment, he just wanted to quietly listen to the prelude to this victory. As the taxi crossed the bridge, his phone vibrated again. This time it was a text message from an unknown number, containing only one line. President Lu, I intercepted a file that Lin Wanner encrypted and sent to K last night. Would you like to view it now? The sender's signature was 7. Lu Hanzhou stared at the screen, his fingertip hovering over the reply button for 2 seconds. The lights of the bridge swept past the car window, casting flickering shadows on his face. He didn't reply, but simply turned his phone over and placed it face down on his lap. There was still a long road ahead. But for now, let the ashes of that wedding burn a little longer. Lu Hanzhou was awakened by the alarm of the cardiac monitor. The sound was sharp, like someone scratching a blackboard with their fingernails, one after another, drilling out of his chest. He sat up abruptly, his head hitting the wooden carvings of the headboard, the pain making his vision go white. The 4 needle in the back of his hand was still connected to the 4 tube, the remaining clear liquid in the tube swaying gently. Hotel suite, floor-to-ceiling windows. Outside the window was the inky blue of the still dawn sky. The office buildings of the financial district in the distance looking like a row of upright coffin lids. He looked down at his hand, the pale blue veins on the inside of his wrist. No surgical scars. He touched his left chest again. His ribs were intact. His heart was beating firmly and powerfully, about 72 beats per minute. The normal frequency of a healthy adult male. Not the ICU. Not that ward with the pungent smell of disinfectant. Not the last 30 seconds before the cardiac monitor flattened out. A calendar sat on the bedside table, its date set for July 13th. Beside it lay a gold-embossed invitation. Flipped open, the inner page announced that Mr. Lu Hanzhou and Ms. Lin Wanner's wedding was scheduled for July 16th. 3 days ago, Lu Hanzhou crumpled the invitation, then slowly smoothed it out. Memories of his past life flooded his mind like a tidal wave. On the night of July 14th, Lin Wanner had brought him a glass of warm milk laced with an overdose of sleeping pills. After he fell into a deep sleep, Shin Yu, accompanied by notary personnel, rushed into the study and, while he was still unconscious, forced him to sign the share transfer documents. By the time the effects of the medication wore off, he was in the ICU, tubes inserted into his body, too weak even to speak. Lin Wanner stood by his bedside, leaning over him and saying, Hanzhou, you're tired. Rest well. Leave the company's affairs to me and Shun Yu. Then she removed the oxygen tube. By the time the nurses found him, it was too late. The medical record stated acute myocardial infarction leading to respiratory failure. But in reality, Lu Hangzhou had suffocated to death. He was still conscious then, and heard Lin Wanner say to Xin Yu outside the ward, "Hurry up with the insurance claim process. I want to move to that villa next month." Now he was sitting on the bed in this hotel, a full 36 hours away from that glass of milk. Lu Hangzhou took a deep breath, pulled out the 4-needle, and tore off a piece of gauze to press on the injection site. The mirror in the suite's bathroom reflected a face 3 years younger than he remembered, with dark circles under his eyes from staying up all night, but clear eyes, without the cloudiness of someone near death in the ICU. He opened his phone. The first message was a voice message from Lin Wanner 5 minutes earlier. "Hangzhou, are you awake? We're trying on wedding dresses today. I'll pick you up from the hotel at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Don't forget to bring that supplementary agreement. The notary office needs to verify the original." In the background of the voice message were the sounds of a coffee machine working and a low laugh. Shen Yu's voice, though very soft, but Lu Hangzhou had heard it twice in his life. He couldn't possibly mistake it. It was 6 in the morning. Lin Wanner said she was at home, but the coffee machine in the background was an Italian semi-automatic model, while their kitchen had a capsule machine. Shen Yu's apartment did have the same model. Lu Hangzhou didn't reply to the voice message. He placed his phone on the sink, splashed cold water on his face, and the water dripped down his chin into his shirt collar, making him shiver. He rummaged through the hotel closet for a set of dark gray casual clothes, changed into them, skipped breakfast, and went straight to the hotel's business center. When he swiped his card to open the door, the young woman on duty at the front desk looked up and said, "Good morning, Mr. Lu." He nodded and locked the door behind him. The computers in the business center weren't high-spec, but the internet speed was fast enough. Lu Hangzhou plugged in his encrypted USB drive and accessed the underlying management backend of the 9 provinces heart system. He had personally written this system 5 years ago, originally intended for internal data risk control within the group. But before he died in his previous life, he had a trick up his sleeve. He had buried a piece of self-starting code at the bottom layer of the system. If Lu Hangzhou's biometric signal was detected to be interrupted for more than 24 hours, it would automatically trigger a global asset freeze. In his past life, he didn't live to see that step. But now, this code became his biggest trump card. He spent 20 minutes modifying the parameters, changing the freeze trigger condition to manual authorization, and simultaneously implanting a hidden monitoring module that could track all of Lin Wanner and Shen Yu's operations within the system in real time. His fingers flew across the keyboard, the code scrolling across the screen like a waterfall. At 8 a.m. sharp, the system pushed out its first alert. Lin Wanner logged into the Equity Management module of Kyushu Heart at 5:47 a.m. this morning, attempting to modify Lu Hangzhou's signature verification threshold. The operation log showed that she tried 6 times in a row, failing each time because the system required iris scanning, and she tried to use a high-resolution printed photo to get away with it. Lu Hangzhou stared at those 6 failed records for a long time. In his past life, he had never thought of checking Lin Wanner's system operation records. Because of trust, because he felt his wife wouldn't harm him, because even when he was busy at the company until the early hours of the morning, he could still drink the soup she had personally heated. The taste of that soup, when he thought about it now, carried the slight bitterness of sleeping pills. He closed the log, opened another document, and began organizing all the key details he could remember from his past life. Shen Yu's overseas account number, the kickbacks Lin Guiqiang received from business partners, the employee numbers of the 3 moles in the group's legal department who had been bribed by Shen Yu. He typed as he recalled, his fingers trembling slightly from the pressure. It wasn't nervousness. It was anger. That anger was like magma, encased in a shell of reason, smoldering in his chest. He needed this evidence. He needed it to become a net, ensnaring everyone. In his past life, he died too quickly, without even a chance to question. This time, he wanted them to stand in the sunlight, in the eyes of the whole world, to hear the sound of the truth shattering. At 11 a.m., Lin Wanner called. Her name flashed on the screen. The contact name still the darling he had set when they registered their marriage 3 years ago. Lu Hangzhou answered. His voice steadied. "Hangzhou, why didn't you reply to my voice message?" Lin Wanner's voice was as sweet as honey. "I'm at the bridal shop. Guess which one looks best?" Didn't you say you liked mermaid styles? But I tried on a tulle dress. It's so ethereal. Do you want to take a look? The background noise was quiet. There was no coffee machine. No laughter. Lu Hanzhou glanced at the surveillance camera. Lin Wanner's phone location showed she was at the Vera Wedding Dress Club in the east of the city. But her car's GPS record showed she had spent over an hour in the West Industrial Park between 9 and 11 this morning. A shell company under Shen Yu's name was registered in that park. I'll pick you up at 2 p.m., Lu Hanzhou said. I brought the agreement. My husband is the best. Lin Wanner chuckled on the other end of the phone, paused for a moment, and then said, by the way, did Lao Zhou talk to you about renewing the contract yesterday? He's getting old, and he can't keep up with many new businesses. How about we take advantage of this equity adjustment and have him retire early? Old Zhou, the operations director who had worked for Lu Hanzhou for 12 years, was the first to question the legality of documents after Lin Wanner seized power in his previous life. As a result, he was sued by Shen Yu for defamation. The lawsuit dragged on for over a year, and he ended up bankrupt. We'll see. Lu Hanzhou hung up the phone. He shut down his computer, unplugged the USB drive, and glanced at the time as he left the business center. 20 hours until that glass of milk. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Lin Wanner's car pulled up in front of the hotel on time. A royal blue sports car. License plate number QShu001. A 30th birthday gift Lu Hanzhou had given her in his previous life. A warm latte sat on the passenger seat. A crooked heart drawn on the cup with a marker. Lu Hanzhou got in, picked up the coffee adorned with milk foam, and smelled it. No strange smell. No sediment, just normal coffee. Lin Wanner wouldn't act during the day. She's too cautious. How did the wedding dress fitting go? He put the coffee back in the cup holder, not drinking it. It looks amazing. Lin Wanner started the car while glancing at him, her eyes crinkling with laughter. You'll definitely be stunned. By the way, the notary office said your supplementary agreement needs an attachment regarding the ownership of those technology patents under your name. The lawyer said it's best to clarify this before marriage to avoid future trouble. Lu Hanzhou looked at the roadside trees flashing past the window. His voice flat. Which ones? The ones you mentioned before. The underlying algorithm of Kyushu Heart? The lawyer said that's a joint research and development achievement after marriage, and should theoretically be considered joint property. But don't worry, it's just a formality. Who's really in whose shoes, right? Her tone was light, like discussing where to eat on the weekend. Lu Hanzhou's lips twitched, but he didn't laugh. The underlying algorithm of Kyushu Heart was something he had written alone over 2 whole years. Lin Wanner couldn't even distinguish between code and a chip. The excuse was ridiculously clumsy, but he believed it in his past life. He genuinely thought it was just a formality, and even put his fingerprint on the document. Okay, I'll bring it tomorrow, he said. Lin Wanner secretly breathed a sigh of relief in the driver's seat, her shoulders slumping half an inch, a subtle movement that Lu Hanzhou caught out of the corner of his eye. In his past life, he had overlooked too many things like this. Every time Lin Wanner lied, her right shoulder would unconsciously sag, as if she had finally put down a heavy load. When the car pulled up in front of the bridal shop, Lu Hanzhou's phone vibrated. He looked down. It was an anonymous alert from Kyushu Heart. Someone was attempting to access his private biometric database via a remote port. The IP address indicated it was from overseas. But after 3 redirects, the final source pointed to the fixed IP address of Shen Yu's office. Lin Wanner was unbuckling her seatbelt and casually asked, "Who is it?" Advertisement. Lu Hanzhou flipped his phone over. As he opened the car door, the sweltering heat of a July afternoon hit him. The tulle dress Lin Wanner had mentioned was displayed in the bridal shop window, its skirt studded with thousands of imitation diamonds, dazzling in the sunlight. He stared at the dress for 3 seconds. But what flashed through his mind was the image of the electrocardiogram monitor in the ICU ward of his past life. A photo of Lin Wanner wearing this dress, standing at the ward door, posted on WeChat Moments by Shen Yu with the caption, "A new beginning." A new beginning. Lu Hanzhou followed Lin Wanner into the bridal shop, a perfectly measured smile on his face. A shop assistant handed him 2 glasses of champagne, which he took and placed on the table without touching them, his gaze sweeping over the full-length mirror. The mirror reflected Lin Wanner's profile as she twirled, the tulle of the dress turning into a white mist. Her smile as bright as a clear June day. Lu Hanzhou met his own eyes in the mirror. 18 hours until the milk arrived. 66 hours until the truth shattered. Just a little more patience. He took out his phone and texted Lao Zhou, "Don't be late for the wedding the day after tomorrow. I've saved you a seat in the first row." Lao Zhou replied instantly, "Don't worry, Mr. Lu. I'll definitely be there." Lu Hanzhou put his phone back in his pocket and watched Lin Wanner trying on her veil in front of the mirror. She turned to him and asked, "Hanzhou, do I look good?" "Yes, I look good," he said. "Absolutely." Lin Wanner rushed over and hugged his arm. The stiff tulle of her wedding dress scratched against his wrist. A little prickly. She was wearing her newly bought perfume, a rose scent with a hint of metallic bass notes. Lu Hanzhou had smelled it for 3 years in his previous life, but now the scent only made him feel nauseous. He gently pulled his arm away. "I have to go back to the company to take care of some things. I'll pick you up for dinner tonight." "Okay." Lin Wanner waved at him. The diamond bracelet on her wrist was a wedding anniversary gift he had given her last month. Sparkling under the spotlight, Lu Hanzhou turned and walked out of the bridal shop. As the glass door closed behind him, he saw Lin Wanner's smile quickly vanish in the reflection. She took out her phone, typed a few lines, and then her lips curled up again, this time with a sharp satisfaction. He lowered his eyelashes and walked towards the parking lot. His phone vibrated for the 3rd time in his pocket, and the screen lit up. The second message from Qi. "Lin Wanner has booked the Jinglangshuan private club in the west of the city for 4 p.m. this afternoon, accompanied by Xinyu. Should we follow her?" Lu Hanzhou typed back, "No. Help me check something. On July 16th, 3 years ago, did the Medical Appraisal Center cooperating with the Kyushu Group retrieve any records of an electrocardiogram report with the number LY 317? Send." He put his phone back in his pocket, opened the car door, and sat in the driver's seat. The seats of the royal blue sports car still retained the warmth of Lin Wanner's body, and the Kyushu Group logo in the center of the steering wheel gleamed coldly in the afternoon sunlight. Lu Hanzhou started the car, and the cool air from the air conditioning vents hit his face. He stared at the blindingly white tulle dress in the bridal shop window ahead, then stepped on the gas. 65 hours left. In these 65 hours, he would avenge the blood debts of his past life. With interest, as the car entered the main road, Seven's reply arrived, found. LY 317 was a blank report. The file contained only a borrowing registration form, with Lin Wanner's signature on the borrower's name. Lu Hanzhou typed with one hand, screenshot, and save. He tossed his phone into the passenger seat, his gaze fixed straight ahead. Outside the windshield, the July 13th sunlight blanketed the entire road, the heat shimmering and distorting the distant buildings. Lu Hanzhou turned the air conditioning down to its lowest setting. The cold air rushed into his shirt collar, but he felt the fire in his chest burning ever brighter. Soon, tomorrow at this time, he would be sitting in the same spot, waiting for Lin Wanner to bring him that glass of milk. And this time, he wouldn't be the one to collapse first. On the morning of July 14th, Lu Hanzhou was awakened by the sound of a cleaning truck in the hotel corridor. He sat up abruptly and immediately checked the back-end logs of Kyushu hard on his terminal. Between 11 p.m. last night and 6 a.m. this morning, Lin Wanner's account had logged in twice, each time for 3 to 5 minutes, checking the signing progress of the equity transfer agreement. The third login occurred at 4:17 a.m., when she sent an internal message to a person named Zhao Ming in the legal department. "What time will the notary office arrive tomorrow?" To ensure that Lu Hanzhou completes the signing and undergoes on-site biometric verification, which must be recorded and archived. Zhao Ming, one of the 3 spies that Xinyu had planted in the legal department in his previous life. Lu Hanzhou stared at the message for 5 seconds, took a screenshot, and saved it to an encrypted folder. He got out of bed to wash up and took out the things he had prepared the night before from the closet, a custom-made suit with anti-scanning linings sewn into the inner pockets, containing 3 items, 2 brand-new encrypted USB drives, a miniature iris scanner, and a data collector that looked like an ordinary pen. The pen's nib is equipped with a micro camera that can scan the paper's surface texture simultaneously while writing, making it more than capable of detecting forged documents. After getting dressed, he sent Lin Wanner a message. "Awake? I brought the agreement. Shall we meet before going to the notary office this afternoon?" Lin Wanner replied instantly. "Okay, I cooked your favorite porridge. Come over for lunch? Lu Hanzhou stared at the word home on the screen for a few seconds. They had been married for 3 years and lived in a 370 square meter riverside apartment in the south of the city, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of half of the financial district's nightscape. Lu Hanzhou spent 4 million yuan renovating that home. Lin Wanner wanted a Japanese-style wooden design, so he had all the imported marble removed and replaced with solid wood flooring. Looking back now, Lin Wanner had visited the site a total of 3 times during the renovation, the last time to measure the curtains. She had never liked that style. He replied, "Okay, I'll be there at 11. After sending the message, he opened the second document she had sent, the follow-up to the LY 317 report he had requested to check last night. The document revealed that after Lin Wanner retrieved the blank electrocardiogram report, she replaced Lu Hanzhou's annual routine physical examination record with it, causing the Medical Appraisal Center's assessment of Lu Hanzhou's heart condition to change from healthy to having a risk of cryptogenic myocardial infarction. This falsified record became the core evidence for Lin Wanner and Shun Yu's application for a declaration of incapacity in their previous life. At the end of the attachment, a note stated, "The IP address used to tamper with the record overlaps with the internal network of a technology company under Shin Yu's name, whose business scope includes medical data services." Lu Hanzhou browsed through the entire document and closed it, tapping his fingertips twice on the desktop. He needed this evidence to be shown to everyone at the wedding. But not just shown. He wanted Lin Wanner and Shin Yu to admit to the falsification in front of everyone, in front of 300 people, in front of the livestream cameras. That required a sufficiently provocative trigger, an opportunity for them to lose their minds in extreme shock and speak recklessly. Lu Hanzhou glanced at his watch. 8:20 a.m. He dialed the hotel's business center. "Book me a suite with a private meeting system until midnight tonight. Also, contact a courier to pick up a package from my room before 9 p.m. 15 minutes later, he handed the courier a sealed envelope. The address was a law firm in the east of the city, and the recipient was an alias. Inside the envelope was a printed copy of an encrypted email he had sent the previous night using an anonymous terminal. The email concerned 3 suspicious financial transactions involving shell companies under Shin Yu's name. He had set the email to be sent automatically at 8 p.m. tonight, just before or after Lin Wanner brought him milk. For breakfast, he casually ate a slice of toast and drank half a cup of black coffee. While waiting, he watched the voice message Lin Wanner had sent the previous night 3 times. Analyzing the details in the background noise frame by frame, besides the coffee machine, there was the sound of a drawer closing and the low-frequency hum of the air conditioning system starting up. Shin Yu's apartment had an old-fashioned central air conditioning system, while theirs was a newly installed split-type system. The 2 types of equipment had different starting frequencies. Lu Hanzhou extracted the audio spectrum of the voice message and compared it, confirming that the background air conditioner humming sound matched the model of Shin Yu apartment with a 97% accuracy rate. That was enough. At 10:45, he checked out of the hotel. As he went downstairs, the receptionist called out to him. "Mr. Lu, Miss Lin had a box delivered last night, saying it was for the wedding. It's on your door. Did you see it?" Lu Hanzhou paused. "What kind of box?" "A blue cardboard box. About this size." The receptionist gestured, indicating it was for wedding supplies as written on the delivery slip. He returned to his room and indeed saw a blue cardboard box against the wall, sealed with tape. He scanned the side of the box with his terminal. The sender on the delivery slip was Lin Wanner, but the return address was Chengxi Industrial Park, the place Lin Wanner's car GPS had shown her stopping at yesterday. Lu Hanzhou used his key to cut open the tape. Inside the box were a bunch of wedding decorations. A dozen or so paper double happiness characters, several rolls of red ribbon, a box of candlesticks, and a folder at the bottom. He opened the folder. Inside was a printed supplementary statement regarding Mr. Lu Hanzhou's health condition. The gist was that Mr. Lu had recently experienced symptoms of mental confusion due to work stress, and it was recommended that he rest and observe after the wedding. The document lacked his signature and date. Lu Hanzhou put the folder back in the box as it was and took a picture. Then he took out the fingerprint scanner and collected a sample of tape residue from an inconspicuous corner of the box's inner wall. It had fingerprints, invisible to the naked eye. but the scanner could scan the outline. He resealed the box and told the receptionist, "Please deliver this to Ms. Lin. Tell her I received it and thank her." The young woman responded and left with the box. Lu Hanzhou stood there, watching her retreating figure disappear into the corridor, and slowly put the scanner back into his inner bag. Plastic box. Industrial park. Mental health statement. Lin Wanner always left a thin veil between the lines. It didn't seem like a conspiracy. At most it was concern. In his past life, he had been deceived by this kind of concern until the very last moment. He turned and went downstairs, driving to that so-called home. The 27th floor apartment on the riverside in the south of the city had an abstract painting by Lin Wanner hanging in the elevator lobby. Its colors a chaotic jumble of colors. Lu Hanzhou rang the doorbell, and Lin Wanner opened the door, wearing an apron, her hair casually tied up, and holding a wooden spatula. The aroma of rice porridge wafted from the kitchen. "Come in quickly." She stepped aside, explaining that the porridge was just cooked and she had also made some omelets. Lu Hanzhou changed his shoes and entered. The television in the living room was on the news channel. Several wedding magazines were spread out on the coffee table, and the sofa cushions were arranged neatly, too neatly. It didn't look like someone lived there. He noticed that a vase on the entryway cabinet had moved 5 centimeters from where he remembered it from yesterday, with half a sticky note under the bottom, revealing the last few digits of a handwritten phone number. He glanced at it and then looked away, noting the last few digits. "Did you bring the agreement?" Lin Wanner poked her head out from the kitchen. "My mom just called and said she wanted to see the contents. Old people like to worry about these things." Lu Hanzhou took the supplementary agreement out of his bag and placed it on the dining table. He noticed Lin Wanner's gaze immediately fixated on the document's cover, her pupils contracting slightly before returning to normal. She came out carrying a bowl of porridge, smiling broadly. "Eat first. Eat first. It won't taste good if it gets cold." The porridge was white rice porridge with red dates and lily bulbs added, and it did smell sweet. Lu Hanzhou scooped a spoonful and put it in his mouth. The temperature was just right, and there was no strange taste. Lin Wanner sat opposite him, holding a cup of warm water in both hands, her gaze fixed on his face. "You look much better today," she said. "You seemed sleepy the other day. Have you been too tired lately?" Lu Hanzhou took a second sip of porridge. "It's okay. I was just a little nervous before the wedding." "What's there to be nervous about?" Lin Wanner reached out and patted the back of his hand. "Everything will be all right after the wedding. By the way, the notary office said they'll arrive at 3 in the afternoon. Shall we leave home at 2? We can go sit at that nearby cafe first. Didn't you say you liked their tiramisu?" Lu Hanzhou nodded and continued drinking his porridge. The red dates in the bowl were cooked until soft and mushy. As he chewed, he thought of the glass of milk Lin Wanner had given him in his past life. It was warm. It had something added to it, and it was all wrapped in care. The difference was that the sleeping pills in the milk could make him sleep for more than 40 minutes, while there was nothing in the porridge because she needed him to be awake in the afternoon to sign something. He put down his spoon. "Okay, I'll do it your way." Lin Wanner smiled, looked down to get her phone, and her fingertips quickly swiped the screen. Lu Hanzhou judged from the curve of her profile that she was typing, and typing very fast, her thumb almost never leaving the touchscreen. When she looked up after sending the message, there was still a smile on her lips, but the light in her eyes flickered and then dimmed. Lu Hanzhou stood up. "I'll go to the study to get a charger." He went into the study and left the door slightly ajar. On the desk was a photo of the two of them, framed in a silver metal frame chosen by Lin Wanner. In the photo, the two of them were standing by the sea, her head resting on his shoulder. Lu Hanzhou turned the photo frame around and placed it face down on the desk. Then he opened the second drawer on the right side of the desk. Inside was a stack of documents. The top one a copy of the equity confirmation he had signed last month, the signature line in his own handwriting. He scanned the signature with a data collection pen for 3 seconds. The handwriting data was automatically saved to a USB drive, forming a comparison sample with the right-angled Joe character on the forged version in his memory. A light knock came from the study door. "Hanzhou, did you find it?" "Yes." He closed the drawer, straightened the photo frame, and turned to open the door. Lin Wanner leaned against the door frame, holding another glass of water. "Here, with honey, to soothe your throat." Lu Hanzhou took it and took a sip. The sweetness of the honey water was mixed with a very faint sourness. He paused, then took a second sip. The sourness was more pronounced, like lemon juice. But honey water shouldn't have lemon. He put down the glass. Thank you. Lynn Warner brushed her fingertips against his hand as she took the glass. Why are you being so polite? Let's go watch some TV. It's still early. They left at 1:50 p.m. In the elevator, Lynn Warner kept scrolling through her phone. Lu Hanzhou stood half a step behind her, and through the reflection in the elevator doors, he saw her chat with President Chun on her screen. The last message was from him. Did he drink? Lynn Warner replied, half a glass. That should be enough. Lu Hanzhou stared at that line of text until the elevator reached the first floor and the doors opened. Then he looked away. He walked behind Lynn Warner, watching her silhouette as she walked towards the parking space in her high heels. Her shoulders and neck taut, each step perfectly timed. The air conditioning in the car was already on. Lu Hanzhou got into the passenger seat, and as he fastened his seatbelt, he glanced at the back seat in the rearview mirror. A manila envelope sat on the seat, a corner of a document peeking out from the seal. The words supplementary clauses of a will faintly visible. He looked away and back ahead. As the car drove out of the complex gate, sunlight streamed in through the windshield, making him squint. At 2:37 p.m., they arrived downstairs at the notary office. Lynn Warner answered a phone call while parking the car. She hummed twice and hung up, then turned to Lu Hanzhou and said, the notary office said there's a temporary problem with the meeting room. Shall we wait in the small tea room upstairs? They'll send someone down to pick us up. Lu Hanzhou unbuckled his seatbelt. Okay. As he opened the car door, his phone vibrated in his pocket. A message from Chi contained only 4 words. Xinyu has arrived. Lu Hanzhou silenced his phone and followed Lin Warner to the elevator lobby on the side of the lobby. The elevator button lit up -1 floor, basement, not upstairs. He said nothing, stepped inside, and stood still. As the elevator doors closed, their reflections were mirrored on the metal surface. Lin Warner looked down at her phone, a slight smile playing on her lips, her fingertips tracing something on the screen. Lu Hanzhou stood half a step behind her, watching her upturned lips in the reflection, and suddenly remembered the last words he heard in the ICU in his past life. She smiled at Xinyu in the corridor and said that it went smoothly. The elevator descended. The number jumped from 1 to -1, and the doors opened with a ding. Outside was a corridor carpeted in gray, leading to a dark wooden door. Lin Warner walked over, pushed open the door, and stepped aside to avoid eye contact. Inside was a private tea room with a sofa. Xinyu sat on the central armchair, legs crossed, an unlit cigar between his fingers. Behind him stood 2 people, one carrying a briefcase, the other holding a tablet. Seeing Lu Hanzhou enter, Xinyu put the cigar in his mouth and smiled casually. Mr. Lu, the notary office changed locations at the last minute and didn't have time to inform you. Sit. Lu Hanzhou stood at the tea room door, his gaze sweeping across the room. The tea set on the table was neatly arranged. The red light on the corner security camera was off, indicating it was not in operation. The man to Xinyu's left, holding the tablet, hovered his finger above the screen, his fingertips trembling slightly. He didn't go inside, but simply pulled the supplementary agreement from his briefcase and placed it flat on a table by the door. Sign whatever you want now. The smile on Xinyu's face froze for a moment. Lin Warner hurried to his side, her voice low and urgent. Hanzhou, why are you so serious? It's just a formality. Lu Hanzhou looked at her. Lin Warner's right hand was gripping Xinyu's sofa armrest. Her fingers clenched tightly, her nails digging into the soft skin. Xinyu's left hand fell down, covering the back of her hand, his thumb rubbing her knuckles twice. The room was silent for 3 seconds. Then Lu Hanzhou chuckled. He leaned against the door frame, arms crossed. Lin Warner, how many milliliters of lemon juice did you add to this honey water? Lin Warner's shoulders slumped. The cigar in Xinyu's mouth fell onto his lap, and he frantically tried to brush it off. The man with the briefcase took a step forward and then froze. The man holding the tablet finally pressed the screen, but nothing happened, because Lu Hanzhou had implanted a signal jamming module in the data collection pin, cutting off all wireless transmission within a 5-meter radius. Don't bother. Lu Hanzhou pulled out the miniature iris scanner from his inner pocket and flashed it at his eyes. The smart mirror on the tea room wall suddenly lit up, displaying the Kyushu Heart System interface, with a line of green text popping up at the top. Biometric verification passed. Permission confirmed. Highest level. Shinyu stood up. His face ashen. You fucking played me? I didn't play you. Lu Hanzhou put the scanner away. His tone as calm as reading a weather forecast. It was you. The tech team you hired was taken over by my people last Friday. And your remote port permissions were transferred to my backup server 3 days ago. You thought you were here to sign an agreement this afternoon. But actually, Kyushu Hard has been recording since I walked through this door. He pointed to the surveillance camera in the corner. A red light doesn't mean it's not working. Light frequency capture. You know? Lin Wanner's lips trembled, unable to utter a single word. Shinyu swept the teacup on the coffee table to the floor, the sound of shattering porcelain echoing in the enclosed tea room. Are you crazy? What evidence do you have for all this? We didn't do anything. Is that so? Lu Hanzhou pulled the data collection pin from his inner pocket, pressed the cap, and the pin projected a miniature holographic screen, displaying a scrolling encrypted communication log, all the secret chat content between Lin Wanner and Shinyu over the past week. Time, location, IP address, file transfer records, all laid out in the air without missing a single detail. Shinyu lunged forward to snatch the pen. Lu Hanzhou dodged to the side, raised his hand, and pressed a hidden button on the inside of the door frame, locking the tea room door from the outside with a click. He took 2 steps back, leaning against the locked door, looking at the 3 people in the room. Shinyu was breathing heavily, his tie askew. Lin Wanner slumped onto the sofa, covering her face with her hands, her shoulders trembling violently. The person holding the tablet finally gave up, throwing the terminal on the table and raising his hands. Mr. Lu, I'm just an employee. Lu Hanzhou didn't even look at him. He stared into Shunyu's eyes and said, word by word, when you were poaching my girlfriend, did you even consider this day's script? Shunyu gritted his teeth, his cheek muscles bulging and then collapsing. Lu Hanzhou, don't be too smug. I've already arranged things at the notary office. Even if that agreement you have is void, I can still get the board to vote again to kick you out. You alone. Can you fight against the entire system? The entire system? Lu Hanzhou smiled and took out a second item from his inner pocket, a folded sheet of printed paper. Unfolding it, it showed the cash flow statements of Shunyu's 3 companies over the past 12 months. Each transaction clearly marked with the recipient and purpose. You call 6 shell companies the entire system? Shunyu's face went from ashen to ashen. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Lu Hanzhou folded the paper back and put it back in his inner pocket, then turned and entered the password to unlock the electronic lock. As the door opened a crack, he glanced back at Lin Wanner. Half an eye peeked out from between her fingers covering her face, her pupil filled with fragments of panic. I'll sign the agreement at the wedding tomorrow, Lu Hanzhou said, in front of everyone. He pushed open the door and walked out, the carpet in the gray corridor absorbing all his footsteps. Behind him, the muffled sound of Shun-Yu smashing things echoed from the tea room, along with Lin Wanner's suppressed sobs. Lu Hanzhou didn't turn around. He stepped into the elevator and pressed the 1 button. As the elevator ascended, he glanced at the time, 3 p.m., 48 hours until the wedding. His phone vibrated. A new message from Chi. Shinyu just left through the side door, driving towards the north of the city. Also, the supplementary clauses of the will you asked me to check have been verified. They were drafted by the same lawyer Lin Wanner commissioned 3 days ago. Lu Hanzhou stared at the screen, his thumb hovering over the reply button for a second before pressing the dial button. The call connected. The person on the other end spoke softly. Mr. Lu, the plan remained unchanged. Lu Hanzhou walked into the lobby on the 1st floor. Sunlight streamed in through the floor-to-ceiling windows, covering the entire marble floor. Everything was in place for tomorrow's wedding. Understood. The call ended. Lu Hanzhou put away his phone and walked out of the notary office building. The sun warmed the back of his neck, and the afternoon breeze of July 14th carried the city's white noise into his ears. He stood on the steps, closed his eyes briefly, and when he opened them again, his gaze fell across the street. The sapphire blue sports car was still parked in its original spot, the driver's side window half open, Lin Wanner's pink handbag lying on the seat, and a lipstick beside it. He walked over, opened the car door, placed the handbag and lipstick on the passenger side, and then closed the door. He turned and walked to a black sedan parked by the roadside, opened the back door, and got in. The person in the driver's seat turned around, wearing sunglasses, but the jawline was familiar. Old Joe. Mr. Liu, are you all right? Old Joe's voice was a little tense. I'm fine. Lu Hanzhou leaned back in his seat. Let's go. To headquarters. Before I leave work tomorrow, I need electronic copies of the personal files of all the heads of the group's departments. Old Joe started the car and glanced at him in the rearview mirror. All of them? All of them. The black sedan drove onto the main road and merged into the afternoon traffic. In the rearview mirror, the glass curtain wall of the notary office building gradually shrank into a dot of light. Lu Hanzhou leaned back in his seat with his eyes closed, his fingers tapping a rhythm lightly on his knee. 48 hours. He opened his eyes again, watching the skyline of the financial district slowly approach through the car window. The top of the Kyushu building flashed blue signal lights. Like an open eye. At this time tomorrow, that I will see many things. At 7 o'clock on the evening of July 14th, when Lu Hanzhou came out of the Kyushu building, there was only the last orange-red light left on the horizon. He draped his suit jacket over his arm, and his phone screen showed the third missed call from Lin Wanner, all within 15 minutes of each other. After the 8th missed call, she sent a text message. Hanzhou, where did you go? Can we talk about the tea house incident properly? I was wrong. I admit I hid some things from you, but it's really not what you think. Lu Hanzhou stared at the 3 words I was wrong for 2 seconds. His fingertip swiped across the screen, deleted the message, and casually added Lin Wanner's phone number to the temporary blacklist until the wedding was over tomorrow. He drove to a 24-hour casual dining restaurant in the south of the city, ordered a beef rice bowl, and sat in a corner by the window to eat slowly. As he poked at the rice with his chopsticks, his mind raced through tomorrow's schedule. 8:00 a.m. The makeup artist would arrive at the hotel. 9 a.m. Lin Wanner would come to plead for reconciliation. 10 a.m. Shinyu would try to contact other high-ranking executives in the group for a final push. 11 a.m. The notary office person bribed by Shinyu would arrive with new documents. All the timelines were under his control. The only uncontrollable factor was whether Lin Wanner would take drastic action tomorrow morning. Halfway through his meal, the chair opposite him was pulled out. Lu Hanzhou looked up to see a young woman wearing a baseball cap, the brim pulled low, revealing only her chin and a faint mole on her lip. She pushed a black USB drive from her pocket. She asked me to give this to you. Shinyu had picked up a document from a private pawn shop in the north of the city at 4 p.m. The photos were here. Lu Hanzhou didn't touch the USB drive. Why did she ask you to come? She said you can't have a fixed contact person around you right now. It's easy for them to be watched. The young woman pulled her hat brim down a little lower. Lin Wanner left home at 8 p.m., not driving, but taking a taxi. Her destination was the Jinglangshuan Club in the west of the city. She carried a briefcase, large enough to hold a 15-inch tablet. Lu Hanzhou put the USB drive in his pocket, took 2 bills from his wallet, and placed them under his plate. Understood. Go back and tell Chi that after 10 a.m. tomorrow, all communication channels should be switched to the backup channel. The young woman nodded, stood up, and disappeared into the crowd at the casual dining restaurant. Lu Hanzhou wrapped the USB drive she had touched in a tissue and put it in his inner bag, continuing to eat the remaining half bowl of rice. The beef was stewed until very tender, the sauce seeping into the rice grains. He chewed each bite carefully, as if replenishing his body with some kind of ritualistic strength. After dinner, he drove back to the hotel. When he entered his room at 8:40 p.m., there was a letter slipped under the door, a cream-colored envelope, and signed. He opened it. Inside was only one piece of paper with printed text. Mr. Liu, this is Zhao Ming. Can we meet before the wedding tomorrow? I'd like to discuss some legal matters with you privately. Zhao Ming, one of the 3 moles bribed by Shinyu in his past life. He was still helping Lin Wanner confirm the notary office hours early this morning. Lu Hanzhou turned the letter over, and in the corner on the back, he wrote a line in pencil. Shinyu asked me to trick you into revealing information, but I'm willing to defect. Lu Hanzhou folded the letter and tucked it into his hotel notepad without replying. Zhao Ming's defection might be genuine, or it could be Shunyu's second bait. He didn't need defectors. He only needed everyone to be in their predetermined positions at that moment tomorrow. He took a shower, changed into his pajamas, and neatly arranged the terminal and USB drive on the bedside table. Before lying down, he opened the back end of Kyushu Hard, and checked the parameters of the holographic projection system for tomorrow's wedding one last time. The banquet hall's dome could support a height of 12 meters. The projection equipment had been installed in the ceiling's mezzanine 3 days ago, and the wireless control terminal was attached to a microchip inside his watch. All the wiring ran on the building's independent backup power supply and did not share any interfaces with the banquet hall's main circuit. The back-end log showed that no one had attempted to hack in tonight. Lu Hanzhou turned off the light and lay down in bed. He lay awake in the darkness, staring at the fire sprinkler head on the ceiling. The small red dot looked like a shrunken eye. He remembered this night in his past life. Lin Warner brought him that glass of milk. He drank it, and 20 minutes later, he started feeling dizzy. When he woke up, he was in the ICU. At that time, his last thought was that tomorrow was the wedding, and she had said she would wear that tulle dress. He turned over and buried his face in the pillow. The pillow had the hotel's standard lavender scent, a clean, almost imperceptible fragrance. Before falling asleep, he heard his phone vibrate on the bedside table. He didn't look at it. At 6 o'clock on the morning of July 15th, Lu Hanzhou woke up on time. He checked the terminal backend first. The only alarm record from last night was at 2:17 a.m., when Lin Warner's cell phone signal stayed at the Jinglangshuan clubhouse in the west of the city for 4 hours before moving back to the Binjiang Grand apartment. During that time, her account wasn't logged into the Kyushu Heart system. But around 1 a.m., one of her bank cards had a 5-figure transfer record, with the recipient being a print shop. He got up, dressed, and put the USB drive and terminal into his inner bag. At 7 in the morning, he went to the hotel restaurant and ordered a black coffee and 2 boiled eggs. Halfway through his meal, Lin Warner appeared at the restaurant entrance, wearing a beige knitted cardigan, her hair loose, with heavy dark circles under her eyes, as if she hadn't slept all night. She walked over and sat down opposite Lu Hanzhou, placing her hands clasped together on the table, her knuckles white from the force. Hanzhou. Lu Hanzhou continued peeling the egg. Yes. What happened yesterday? I won't deny it. Lin Warner's voice was low, with a deliberately suppressed hoarseness. Shen Yu threatened me, saying he has leverage over how I handled an old company matter. I was afraid you'd look down on me if you knew. So, I helped him do those things. But believe me, I never really intended to harm you. Even if those documents were signed, I can always void them later. Lu Hanzhou took a bite of the peeled egg. Crumbs of egg yolk clung to his lips, which he wiped with a tissue. What was in your briefcase when you left? Lin Warner's eyelashes trembled violently. What briefcase? Last night at 8 o'clock. You took a taxi from home to Jinglangshuan. Lu Hanzhou took a sip of coffee. Was the briefcase filled with the original or a copy of the blank electrocardiogram report you took from the medical appraisal center 3 years ago? The air froze for 2 seconds. Lin Warner's lips parted 3 times before she managed to squeeze out a sound. You. How do you know about Jinglangshuan? I know a lot, Lu Hanzhou said, putting the remaining half egg on a plate and standing up. Lin Warner, you have 24 hours. Think carefully about whether you want to tell the truth at the wedding tomorrow, or continue to take the blame for Shen Yu. He picked up his coffee cup and left the table. Lin Warner remained seated, her shoulders trembling slightly from behind. A deep purple mark, like a hickey, was visible at the back of her off-white knitted sweater's collarbone. A recent addition. Lu Hanzhou walked past the restaurant entrance without looking to either side, placing his cup on the recycling counter. The clinking of the porcelain cups made a crisp sound. As he turned to walk towards the elevator, he caught a glimpse of Lin Warner suddenly standing up and running in another direction, her high heels clicking rapidly on the floor tiles like a distress signal. He entered the elevator and pressed the close button. At 9:30 a.m., Lu Hanzhou held a video conference in the hotel's business center to the heads of the group's 7 business units. The expressions on everyone's faces on screen varied. That some were nervous, some were bewildered, and 2 were clearly trying to appear calm. Old Joe sat in the first seat, a stack of printed materials spread out in front of him. Lu Hanzhou didn't exchange pleasantries, directly pulling up a list and projecting it onto the shared screen. These 15 people. Go to the headquarters Human Resources Department before 5 p.m. today to complete the handover. The compensation plan will be based on the highest standard of the labor contracts, with no obstacles. 3 people on the list were from the legal department, including Zhao Ming. A stir ran through the video feed. A business unit head named Qian Xin spoke first. President Liu. Several of the employees on this list have been with you for over 5 years. You need to give a reason. Liu Hanzhou switched screens, displaying a set of encrypted email screenshots. Qian Senior, the second consulting fee you received on the 12th of last month was transferred from Carry Consulting, controlled by Shen Yu. Do you want to see the full version of the inbox screenshot? Qian Sen's face turned pale. He murmured a few times, then retreated to the edge of the screen and remained silent. Seeing this, the others also quieted down. Old Zhou cleared his throat. President Liu, I've arranged the handover process. It will all be completed before 5 p.m. Liu Hanzhou nodded. Also, after the wedding tomorrow at 3 p.m., there will be an extraordinary board meeting at the group headquarters. All current senior executives must attend. Absence will be considered an automatic resignation. He paused. Not resignation, but resignation. You can figure out the difference yourselves. The video conference ended in silence. Liu Hanzhou glanced at the time as he closed the terminal, 9:52 p.m. He received a new message from Qi's backup channel. Shen Yu departed from his residence in the north of the city at 7:40 this morning, stopping for 45 minutes in the East Industrial Park to retrieve a gray metal box. The box's size is compatible with a portable data server. He entered the Jinglangshuan clubhouse at 9:30 and has not yet left. Liu Hanzhou typed, "Can we intercept the contents of the metal box?" No. He carried it with him the entire time, with his assistant in the car. But regarding the transfer from the print shop last night, we checked the recipient. That shop printed a batch of backup wedding invitations yesterday afternoon. 300 copies, with the mailing address being Jinglangshuan. Shen Yu probably wanted to send the invitations privately to the guests today, replacing the official invitations at your wedding. Liu Hanzhou stared at the words replace invitations for 3 seconds. What was Shen Yu planning to do? Was he going to notify the guests of a change of venue at the last minute? Or was he going to include something else in the invitations? Several possibilities flashed through his mind, the most reasonable being that Shen Yu wanted to divert the guests before the wedding started, reducing the number of witnesses at the scene tomorrow. But 300 backup invitations were clearly not enough to cover all the guests. Shen Yu didn't have the authority to access the complete guest list either. He kept staring at the invitations and replied. He told me when he left Jinglangshuan. After putting down the terminal, Liu Hanzhou did a few things. First, he contacted the hotel's banquet department to confirm that the security system for tomorrow's wedding venue had been integrated with Jiuzhou Jixin. No extra manpower was needed, relying entirely on the banquet hall's own intelligent access control system. Each guest would scan their mobile electronic invitation upon entry, and the system would automatically record the entry time and identity information. The paper backup invitations in Shen Yu's hands didn't have electronic chips and couldn't be used to open the access control. The second thing he did was send Lao Zhou an encrypted list of several auxiliary actions he needed to perform during tomorrow's wedding ceremony, such as standing up to applaud at a specific time or walking to the side of the stage to answer a phone call at a certain moment. Lao Zhou didn't ask why, only replying received. The third thing he did was dial a number he had saved for a long time. The phone rang 3 times before being answered, and a gentle male voice came from the other end.mr. Liu, Attorney Lee, I have an electronic evidence chain to submit to the Arbitration Alliance tomorrow afternoon. Is your receiving port ready? Anytime. Attorney Lee chuckled. I reviewed the materials you sent yesterday overnight, and there are no issues with their evidentiary value. Also, regarding the commercial violations that Ms. Lin and Mr. Shun are suspected of, I have prepared a supplementary opinion, which I will submit tomorrow as well. Okay. Liu Hanzhou hung up the phone. At noon, Qi sent a new message. Shen Yu left Jinglangshuan, carrying the metal box with him. The car is currently heading towards the east of the city, and the route suggests it might be to the hotel where your wedding venue is located. Liu Hanzhou sat in the swivel chair in the business center and read the message twice. Shen Yu took the metal box to the Four Seasons Hotel. What did he want to pre-position in the banquet hall? A server? Jamming equipment? Or something else? He accessed the hotel's subsystem of Kyushu Hard and brought up the real-time environmental monitoring footage of the banquet hall. The infrared sensor showed that someone was moving around in the banquet hall, not a hotel staff member, because there were no other events scheduled for the banquet hall this afternoon, and staff wouldn't be going in at this time. The person's heat signature remained in the area behind the stage for nearly 10 minutes. Liu Hanzhou zoomed in on the heat signature image and determined the body type. Male, about 1.78 meters tall, with narrow shoulders. Xinyu was 1.82 meters tall, and his shoulder width was 4 centimeters wider than that. It was Shun Yu's assistant. He used the PTZ camera of the hotel security system, found the closest angle to the stage, and retrieved the video playback from the past half hour. In the footage, a young man in a black jacket was squatting on the ground behind the stage, taking out a palm-sized gray device from the metal box and attaching it to the inside of the wooden stage back panel, securing it with tape. After finishing, he stood up, took a picture, packed his suitcase, and left through the side door. Liu Hanzhou captured those frames and zoomed in on the gray device's shape, cylindrical, with a miniature antenna on top and a heat sink on the bottom. He checked the image recognition database and found that this device was a short-range signal jammer with an effective radius of 8 to 10 meters, capable of interfering with all wireless signal transmissions within the area centered on the stage, including the control chip inside his watch. Liu Hanzhou stared at the image of the jammer on the screen and suddenly smiled. He opened another interface and brought up a structural diagram of the interlayer behind the stage. There was a 15-centimeter cavity behind that back panel, originally used for cable routing. 2 days ago, he had someone install an extra backup signal repeater in the cavity, operating on an independent frequency, bypassing the main circuit's wireless channel. Xinyu's jammer couldn't cover the repeater's operating frequency band. He noted this discovery down, and when he switched back to the monitoring interface, saw Shun Yu's assistant walk out of the hotel and take a phone call on the roadside. The call lasted about 30 seconds. The assistant's body language shifted from relaxed to tense. He kept rubbing his fingers, pacing back and forth, and finally abruptly hung up. Liu Hanzhou noted the timestamp of the call and, 10 minutes later, checked Shun Yu's phone's signal base station records. Shun Yu's number had moved in the eastern part of the city during the same period, with the base station switching 3 times. The call might not have been made to him, but the timing matched. At 2 p.m., Liu Hanzhou left the business center and returned to his room. He needed a few hours to rest and conserve his energy for tomorrow. As he entered the elevator, his phone vibrated, a message from Lin Wanner. From the number he had unblocked, Hanzhou, I know you don't want to see me, but I'll be waiting for you at Jinglan Pavilion at 8 p.m. tonight. Only until 8:30. If you don't come, I'll talk to you in another way tomorrow. You know me. I mean what I say. Liu Hanzhou read the message, his thumb hovering over the screen. She was going to Jinglan Pavilion again tonight. Xinyu had been to that place twice today. Suitcase, metal box, spare invitations, signal jammer. All the clues pointed to the same coordinates. Jinglangshuan had become their temporary headquarters. He replied with a single line, 8 o'clock. I'll be there. After sending it, he silenced his phone, lay back on the bed, and closed his eyes. The fire sprinkler head on the ceiling was still a small red dot. He stared at it, the last few dull thuds before his heart rate flattened in the ICU of his past life echoing in his ears, the alarm of the electrocardiogram monitor, Lin Wanner's footsteps, the click of the lock closing on the ward door. What would he see at Jinglangshuan tonight? Lin Wanner's final plea for peace, or another trap set by Xinyu? He turned over and buried his face in the pillow. The scent of lavender filled his nostrils, and he silently counted down tomorrow's schedule. 8 o'clock for makeup, 9 o'clock for Lin Wanner's plea for peace, 10 o'clock for Shun Yu to contact the executives, 11 o'clock for the notary office to arrive. He had rehearsed each step at least 3 times, but for tonight's game at Jinglangshuan, he hadn't fully grasped the game plan yet. For 5 hours, from afternoon to evening, Liu Hanzhou didn't leave his room. He ate the sandwiches delivered by the hotel, reviewed 2 supplementary documents sent by attorney Li, and finished adjusting the last few technical details of tomorrow's wedding ceremony on his terminal. At 6:30, he took a shower and changed into casual clothes, a dark shirt, black trousers, and a light jacket. Everything that could potentially reveal his identity was left in the hotel room. The terminal, the USB drive, and the data collection pen. He only brought his watch and phone. At 7:45, he hailed a taxi to Jinglangshuan in the west of the city. The driver glanced at him a few times in the rearview mirror, probably thinking it was a bit odd for a guest dressed in all black to go to a club at this hour. Jinglangshuan was located in an old villa area in the west of the city. It had no sign, only a black iron gate and a card reader next to it. Lu Hanzhou gave a reservation number, a temporary membership number that she had generated for him in advance, and the door opened. He went inside. The interior of the villa was decorated in a dark-toned modern Chinese style, with private tea rooms separated behind carved wooden screens. The corridor was quiet. The stone slabs underfoot were smooth, and every door was closed, each bearing a bronze-numbered plaque. Lin Warner was waiting for him in the lawn-branded tea room at the end of the corridor. When he entered, she was sitting on a sofa by the window, 2 cups of tea in front of her, one beside her and one opposite her. She had changed into a black dress. Her hair was styled, and her makeup was meticulously applied. Her lipstick a bright red, a stark contrast to the sweet Lin Warner from the bridal shop yesterday. Seeing Lu Hanzhou enter, she didn't stand up, but simply pointed to the opposite side. Sit. Lu Hanzhou sat down, without touching the teacup. I asked you to come tonight, not to beg for your forgiveness. Lin Warner's voice was calmer than he expected, carrying a reckless sharpness. I'm here to tell you that you can't cancel tomorrow's wedding. Lu Hanzhou leaned back on the sofa. Why? Lin Warner pulled a folded piece of paper from her handbag and pushed it towards him. Lu Hanzhou unfolded the report, dated last month. The diagnosis section stated moderate anxiety with mood disorder, and the advice section advised against making any major life decisions in the near future. This isn't a forgery, Lin Warner said. It's your real medical report. I bribed the doctor to add a few extra lines of notes during your full-body checkup last month. But the diagnosis itself is real. You know you've been having trouble sleeping and mood swings for the past 6 months. Lu Hanzhou folded the report and placed it back on the table. So what? So I can present this report at tomorrow's wedding. Lin Warner's fingers dug into the leather of the sofa. If you cancel the wedding, I'll say your mental state is unstable, and all your business decisions are invalid. Even if you hold the power over Kyushu Heart, what can you do? The board can hold a vote of confidence against you. If they believe you're unfit, they can still strip you of your control. Her breathing quickened noticeably after she finished speaking, and the deep purple marks on her collarbone were faintly visible at the edge of her neckline. Lu Hanzhou shifted his gaze from her neck to the cup of tea opposite her. Biluakan. The leaves sunk to the bottom, half a tea stem floating on the surface. Lin Warner. He spoke softly. Have you ever thought about why I came tonight? Lin Warner paused, startled. Shinyu went to the Four Seasons Hotel today and had your assistant install a signal jammer behind the stage. Lu Hanzhou said he was afraid I'd use the Kyushu Heart's wireless control function at the wedding tomorrow. But he doesn't know I installed an independent repeater in the back panel cavity, with physical wiring bypassing all wireless frequency bands. He showed his phone screen, displaying a screenshot of the stage back panel taken at noon today, the gray device secured with tape, clearly visible at the angle. Your briefcase contained the original blank electrocardiogram report, and Shun Yu's metal case contained the data server. You met twice at Jinglan Pavilion, discussing how to completely crush me before the wedding begins tomorrow. A layer of color drained from Lin Warner's face. She instinctively tried to stand up, her leg hitting the edge of the coffee table, causing the teacup to wobble and spill tea, wetting the surface. But you two didn't reach an agreement. Lu Hanzhou put his phone away because there was a disconnect between you. You secretly printed backup invitations without Shinyu's knowledge, while Shinyu secretly prepared a list of new board nominees. You were both leaving yourselves an escape route, and both were wary of each other. The tea room remained quiet for a long time. Outside the window, the sky had completely darkened, with only a floor lamp casting a dim yellow light from beside the screen. Lin Warner sat at the edge of the light, half her face illuminated, half in shadow. Her lips moved. The words squeezed out from her throat. How could you even know about the invitations? I know more than you think. Lu Hanzhou stood up. The wedding will proceed as scheduled tomorrow. But before you go on stage, you'd better think carefully about one thing, whether you continue to stand with Shunyu or turn back now. The former will lead you to a fall with him. The latter will allow you to keep your parents' house. As he reached the tea house door, Lin Warner called out to him from behind, her voice trembling sharply. Lu Hanzhou, do you really not care at all about these past 3 years with us? Lu Hanzhou's hand rested on the doorknob. He didn't turn around. I did care, he said. Then he pushed open the door and walked out. The corridor remained quiet, the stone floor reflecting the light of the copper lamps. As he passed the screen and headed towards the iron gate, he passed the Reborn tea house. The door was ajar, a sliver of light leaking through the crack. In that fleeting moment, he caught a glimpse of someone inside, a man in a gray suit sitting with his back to the door, a metal box on the coffee table in front of him. Lu Hanzhou didn't stop, heading straight for the exit. The iron gate slammed shut behind him with a heavy click. Standing under a street lamp outside the villa area, he took out his phone and sent a message to Qi. Xinyu is at the Reborn tea house in Jinglangshuan. The metal box is next to him. Confirm if he'll leave tonight. The reply came quickly. The surveillance footage shows he arrived 15 minutes ago and shows no signs of leaving. In addition, Zhao Ming just sent an appointment email to your hotel front desk using his personal email address, saying he wants to report on the legal progress to you in person before the wedding tomorrow. The time is 7 a.m., and the location is the storage room in the hotel's underground parking garage. After reading the message, Lu Hanzhou looked up at the night sky. The visibility in the western part of the city was good, and he could see a few stars nailed against the dark blue sky. He exhaled and hailed a taxi back to the hotel. In the car, he closed his eyes and rearranged all the information from today in his mind. Shun Yu's metal box, Lin Wanner's medical report, Zhao Ming's letter of defection, the backup invitation, the signal jammer. Every clue pointed to that time tomorrow morning. He opened his eyes, and the streetlights outside the window swept past one by one. By this time tomorrow, everything should have a result. At 4 a.m. on July 16th, Lu Hanzhou woke up. It was still dark outside the window, the dark blue sky pressing down on the horizon, and the streets below the Four Seasons Hotel were empty, with only a few sprinkler trucks slowly passing by. He lay in bed, mentally reviewing the day's schedule, confirming that the trigger conditions for each step were met. Before getting up to wash, while putting on his suit, he looked at his reflection in the mirror for a while. The person in the mirror had cold eyes, a pressed-down mouth, and a throbbing vein on his forehead. He tightened his tie, took the watch from the drawer, and put it on his left wrist. A microchip was embedded in the watch face, wirelessly linked to the projection equipment in the banquet hall's ceiling. He left the room at 6 o'clock sharp. The corridor was quiet, save for the sound of the cleaning truck wheels rolling past at the end. He took the elevator down to the first floor. Several staff members were already setting up the registration table in the lobby, flowers, candies, guest lists, and neatly arranged red ribbons. As he passed, someone looked up and called out, "Good morning, Mr. Liu." He nodded in response and walked out of the revolving door without looking to either side. A black sedan was parked outside, and old Zhou was leaning against the driver's seat smoking. Seeing Lu Hanzhou come out, he stubbed out his cigarette. Mr. Liu, he's arrived. It was 7 a.m. sharp in the underground parking garage storage room. Lu Hanzhou glanced at his watch. Tell him to wait. At 5 minutes to 7, Lu Hanzhou turned into the underground parking garage from the service passage on the first floor. The storage room was in a corner at the very back of the garage. Room number B17, next to several stacks of spare hotel tables and chairs. When he pushed open the door, Zhao Ming was already sitting on the only folding chair in the storage room, clutching a brown paper bag in his hand, his knuckles white. Zhao Ming saw him come in and jumped up, almost dropping the paper bag.mr. Lu, get to the point. Lu Hanzhou leaned against the door frame, arms crossed. Zhao Ming swallowed hard. Xinyu asked me to tell the notary on site before you sign any documents today that there are doubts about the handwriting analysis of this signature, to slow down the process and give him time to process things in the back. He gave me this as payment. He handed over the brown paper bag. Lu Hanzhou didn't take it. Open it. Zhao Ming trembled as he tore open the paper bag, and a car key and a bank card fell out. The key bore the logo of a high-end brand, and the bank card had a label with the PIN written on it. That's all. And he said he'd promote me to Deputy General Manager of Legal Affairs after it was done. Zhao Ming's voice trailed off. Mr. Liu, I truly know I was wrong. He threatened me with my wife's job back then. I had no choice. Lu Hanzhou looked at him. He asked you to mention the suspicious handwriting analysis. When exactly? Before signing the first official document. Zhao Ming answered quickly. About 20 minutes after the ceremony ended, Lu Hanzhou took out his phone, brought up a recording interface, and pressed the red button. Repeat everything you just said, including the specific instructions and timing Xinyu gave you. Zhao Ming's face paled for a moment, but he quickly gritted his teeth and began to speak. The recording lasted about 3 minutes, recounting the events from beginning to end. Afterwards, Lu Hanzhou encrypted the recording and stored it in the cloud. Removing his body from the doorway, "You can go now. You don't need to be present at the wedding today. Go back to headquarters and report to Lao Zhou. He'll tell you what to do next." Zhao Ming practically ran out of the storage room. His leather shoes clattered on the concrete floor, the sound fading into the distance until it disappeared in the direction of the garage entrance. Lu Hanzhou stood alone in the storage room for half a minute. His phone screen lit up, showing the current time as 7:06. As he exited the recording interface, he saw an unread message from 7. Sent 3 minutes ago. Xinyu left Jinglangshuan at 5 a.m. The metal box accompanying the car. He entered the Four Seasons Hotel's underground garage at 6:20 a.m. Parking in Block B. The box has been moved. Its new location has not yet been detected. He put away his phone, left the storage room, and took the elevator back to the lobby on the first floor. The guests hadn't arrived yet, but the wedding team was already setting up the banquet hall. He stood at the door for a few seconds, watching staff tie white gauze flowers to the backs of chairs, someone adjusting the angle of the crystal chandeliers, and a makeup artist carrying a large case slipping in through a side door. The receptionist called out to him. "Mr. Lu, Miss Lin just called and said she'll be an hour late, so you don't need to wait for her to get ready." Lin Wanner was late. Lu Hanzhou quickly adjusted his mindset. She had originally planned to arrive at 8 o'clock, but now she had postponed it to 9, most likely to have a final discussion with Xinyu. This meant that the time window between 9 and 10 o'clock would be more intense, but his original buffer time covered this change. "Understood," he told the receptionist, instructing guests to ensure all electronic invitations are scanned before entry. Those with paper invitations should exchange them for electronic codes at the reception. At 8:30, the first group of guests began arriving. Old Zhou, dressed in a dark blue suit, stood by the registration table, a glass of champagne in his hand, seemingly waiting for someone, but actually counting heads. He ticked off each person who entered on his phone's memo app. Lu Hanzhou watched him through the crack in the side door of the banquet hall. When the number reached 210, he received a text message from Old Zhou. Xinyu wasn't on the list. He hadn't seen him. Xinyu hadn't entered as a guest. Where was he then? Backstage in the banquet hall? Some corner in the basement? Or was he waiting near the stage? Lu Hanzhou exited through the side door and walked to the equipment room adjacent to the banquet hall. Pushing open the door, he saw piles of audio equipment and cable reels, and the electrical box in the corner had its lid open. He crouched down to inspect the wiring inside the distribution box. All the wire interfaces were labeled with white heart of Kyushu tags. This was the wiring method he had personally led people to modify 3 days ago. A separate shielded cable ran from the main meter box to all the electronic equipment in the banquet hall. Without any adapters, there was a thin black wire he hadn't seen before at the bottom of the distribution box. The wire extended from a hole at the bottom of the distribution box, running along the wall to another equipment room next door. Lu Hanzhou followed the wire and pushed open the door to the second equipment room. It was empty except for a gray metal box the size of a suitcase in the corner. A shipping label was attached to the side of the box. The sender's address was the shell company under Xinyu's name, and the recipient's address was blank. The lock on the metal box had been opened. Inside was a disassembled small server core, with half a piece of insulating tape still wrapped around the cooling fan. A note was attached above the server, handwritten, implanted for backup. Lu Hanzhou crouched down and took a few photos with his phone, then gently touched the server core's casing. The temperature was normal. No heat from operation. The server hadn't started up yet, or perhaps it had been shut down after starting. He checked the handwriting on the notepad, visually comparing it to the signature Xinyu had signed on a document in the tea room yesterday. They were basically identical. He stood up and left, restoring the doors between the two equipment rooms to their original positions. At 9 o'clock sharp, Lin Wanner arrived. Lu Hanzhou saw her through the crack in the side door of the banquet hall. She wore a white satin casual dress, her hair simply tied up, her makeup exquisite. but her lipstick was a pale color, different from her usual preference for bright red. She stood in front of the registration desk and said a few words to Lao Zhou, her expression calm, even smiling slightly. Then she glanced towards the stage, her gaze sweeping over the side door area where Lu Hanzhou was, but didn't linger. At 9:15, the guests had mostly entered. 90% of the 300 seats in the banquet hall were occupied, the crystal chandeliers casting a warm golden edge on the white roses. The live band was tuning their instruments in a corner, the cello's deep strings piercing the air. Lu Hanzhou entered the backstage area through a side door. The makeup artist was folding a spare veil there, and hurriedly stood up when she saw him enter. "Mr. Lu, Miss Lin said she doesn't need a makeup trial today. She can go straight to the stage." Lu Hanzhou nodded. He stood behind the curtain in the backstage area. Looking at the stage through the gap in the curtain, the white wooden stage was surrounded by flowers. The back panel smooth and flat, showing no abnormalities. But he knew that 15 centimeters behind that back panel, there was a signal repeater quietly standing by, and a signal jammer that Shun Yu's assistant had installed 24 hours ago. He raised his left wrist to look at it. The chip indicator light on the inside of the dial was glowing a faint blue light. The signal was normal. At 9:45, the MC went on stage to test the microphone. The voice echoed in the banquet hall before being amplified into a soft decibel by the sound system. "Distinguished guests, the wedding ceremony will begin in 10 minutes. Please be seated." Lu Hanzhou took a deep breath. He dialed a number, rang once, and hung up. This was a signal to Qi to activate the backup live stream channel. 30 seconds later, a notification popped up on his phone screen. "Backup channel is ready," covering the original live stream signal. "Current online viewer count 27.000. He silenced his phone and put it back in his inner pocket. At 10 o'clock sharp, the music started. As the first note of the wedding march flowed from the speakers, Lu Hanzhou stood to the side of the stage, watching the double doors at the end of the banquet hall slowly open. Lin Wanner stood in the light outside the door, wearing that tulle dress, the hem of which spread out to the ground, her veil hanging down to cover half her face. She held a bouquet of white roses in her hands, her fingertips pinching the stems, her fingertips bearing marks of varying depths. She began to walk forward. Guests on both sides of the red carpet turned their heads, some clapping, some taking pictures with their phones. Lu Hanzhou watched her every step, high heels stepping on the red carpet, the hem of her dress sweeping past the petals on both sides, the white tulle refracting countless tiny lights under the lamplight. Every step felt like stepping into his past life's memories. The heartbeats in the last few seconds before the ICU monitor went to zero overlapped with the rhythm of the wedding march. She walked to the altar. The MC said something, and Lin Wanner raised her hand to place it in Lu Hanzhou's outstretched palm. Her fingers were icy cold, her palm sweaty, and it trembled almost imperceptibly as she grasped his. Lu Hanzhou led her onto the altar. The two stood side by side before the microphone, the light from the crystal chandelier pouring down from above. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a deep purple mark on Lin Wanner's neck, half covered by the neckline of her wedding dress, the remaining corner barely visible. The MC began to read the vows. For richer or poorer, in sickness and in health. Lu Hanzhou listened to those words flowing past his ears. He looked down at Lin Wanner's profile. She was biting her lower lip, her eyelashes trembling violently, the engagement ring on her right ring finger flashing coldly under the lights. "Mr. Lu Hanzhou, do you, I do not?" As the three words fell, he released Lin Wanner's hand. The silence in the banquet hall came faster than he had expected. 300 people fell silent at the same moment, leaving only the faint hum of the electricity from the crystal chandelier. Lin Wanner froze on the spot, her gaze towards Lu Hanzhou filled with a premonition of emptiness. She had known he would do this. But when she actually heard those three words, her pupils still contracted. Lu Hanzhou didn't look at her. He reached up and removed the miniature microphone from his collar. He had clipped it on extra that morning, not connected to the banquet hall sound system, but only to the chip inside his watch. He brought the microphone to his lips. "Distinguished guests, thank you for attending today. But this wedding ceased to exist 48 hours ago. I invited you all here to handle some matters in front of everyone." He pressed a touch button on the side of his watch. The air above the stage suddenly rippled in the 12-meter-high dome. 7 holographic projection devices activated simultaneously. 2 overlapping beams of light weaving a giant screen in the air. The screen showed a montage of Lin Wanner and Xunyu in the Jinglangshuan tea room. Timestamped at 10 p.m. on July 14th. Lin Wanner pushed a document to Xunyu. The original ECG report is with me. If he dares to cancel the wedding tomorrow, I'll show this. Xunyu took it and flipped through it. Are you sure his mental state section can fool the board? What if they don't believe it or not? As long as someone questions it. The vote can be delayed for 3 weeks. 3 weeks is enough time for us to change the bottom-level permissions of Kyushu Heart. The screen froze on the moment Xunyu put the report into the metal box. The silence was broken by a sharp gasp. Lin Wanner's mother covered her mouth in the front row, leaning back, and was supported by the person next to her. Lin Guoqiang stood up and sat down again, beads of sweat rolling down his forehead into his collar. Lin Wanner's lips parted, her gaze darting back and forth between the giant screen and Lu Hanzhou. Like a cat suddenly thrown into water, she finally spoke, her voice sharp and fragmented. Lu Hanzhou, you promised me you wouldn't talk about these things tonight. You said you were coming. I said I cared, but I never said I forgave. Lu Hanzhou's voice came through the microphone, neither loud nor soft, but every word drowned out all the noise in the room. I recorded everything you said to me at Jinglan Pavilion last night. I also checked the entire transfer record you gave the doctor. There are dozens of pieces of evidence here today. Whichever one you want to see, I can show it to you one by one. Lin Wanner took a step back, her high heels clicking on her skirt, and stumbled. She instinctively reached out to grab Lu Hanzhou's arm, but grasped only air. The image on the giant screen switched to the second video, a clip of Xunyu's assistant installing a metal box in the equipment room. Timestamped July 15th afternoon. And Lu Hanzhou turned to the side, his gaze passing over Lin Wanner's shoulder towards the entrance of the banquet hall. Mr. Xunyu, if you are here, I suggest you appear now. Hiding was pointless, because in 3.5 minutes, the location of your metal box would be projected directly onto this screen. The air in the banquet hall seemed to have been sucked away. People in the front rows began to whisper, while those in the back recorded videos on their phones. Lin Wanner's wedding dress trailed a crooked arc on the stage floor. She seemed nailed to the spot, her back taut in a rigid straight line. 15 seconds later, the door to the equipment room on the left side of the banquet hall was flung open. Xunyu rushed out, wearing a black sports jacket, half a piece of electrical tape still wrapped around his knuckles. His gaze swept across the image of the metal box on the giant screen, meeting Lu Hanzhou's gaze in midair. He opened his mouth, all the prepared words stuck in his throat, turning into a heavy, labored breath. Lu Hanzhou watched his changing expression, watching the entire curve from anger to fear to utter helplessness. He took the microphone away from his mouth and said in a voice only the two of them could hear, Xunyu, when you were smoking outside the ward the day I was unconscious, did you ever think about today? Xunyu's face twitched spasmodically. He took a step forward, then stopped, because he saw the intelligent access control systems on both sides of the stage simultaneously light up orange indicator lights. A warning signal from the 9 provinces heart system confirming unauthorized entry. All exits of the banquet hall activated their electronic locks at the same instant. The double doors at the end of the red carpet clicking with a dull thud. Lu Hanzhou put the microphone back to his lips, his gaze sweeping over the 300 faces below the stage. There's still a part to go. You'll need to be patient and watch it all. I promise it won't take more than 15 minutes. He pressed the second touch button on the side of his watch. The image on the giant screen switched to the third video. The recording of Zhao Ming in the storage room this morning was being simultaneously played, with subtitles scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Xunyu stood at the door of the equipment room, his entire body sliding down as if his bones had been removed, his knees hitting the ground with a dull thud. Lin Wanner finally broke down. She ripped off her veil and threw it on the ground, the white veil spreading out like a clump of crushed snow. Her voice shattered. Lu Hanzhou, that's enough. You ruined me. You ruined everyone. Are you satisfied now? Lu Hanzhou took the microphone away from his mouth and looked into her eyes. Those eyes were filled with tears and shattered makeup, the white sclera around the pupils bloodshot. He waited until she finished shouting, until she realized everyone was watching her silently, before speaking again. Lin Wanner, You asked me if I care about those 3 years. The only thing I thought about when I woke up in the ICU was when you started planning to kill me during those 3 years. All the color drained from her face instantly. Even her lips turned ashen. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She collapsed onto the stage like a puppet with its strings cut, her tulle skirt spreading out around her like a white shroud. Lu Hanzhou stood there without helping her. The video on the giant screen continued to play, Zhao Ming's voice echoing in the banquet hall. Xinyu asked me to say, about 20 minutes after the ceremony, that this signature has questionable handwriting analysis. People in the audience began to get up and leave. The access control system was unlocked under remote command from Kyushu Heart, and Lin Guiqiang, sitting in the first row, stumbled over to help his daughter. Xinyu got up from the floor and staggered towards the emergency exit on the side of the banquet hall. The hood of his sports jacket was pulled down by the door frame, revealing a patch of receding scalp. Lu Hanzhou watched the emergency exit door close. He turned to face the remaining guests below the stage, about 200 people, some holding phones, some staring in disbelief, some whispering. He brought the microphone to his lips and said one last thing. Today, I am canceling the wedding, recovering all illegally transferred assets, and submitting the complete chain of evidence to the Arbitration Alliance. The follow-up matters will be handled by the group's legal team and are unrelated to those present today. Thank you for attending. You may leave now. He put down the microphone and walked down from the side of the stage. He nodded slightly as he passed Lao Zhou. He did not turn his head as he passed Lin Wanner, who was slumped over. He walked through the gradually dispersing crowd in the banquet hall, the light from the crystal chandelier shattering into cold white fragments on his shoulders. He pushed open the side door leading from the banquet hall to the hotel corridor, went inside, and the door closed behind him. At the end of the corridor was a half-open window, letting in the July morning wind, carrying the buzzing of the city's white noise. Lu Hanzhou leaned against the wall by the window and took his phone out of his inner pocket. A new message popped up on the screen. From number 7. Xinyu ran out of the hotel through the emergency exit and got into a black SUV that had been parked in advance by the roadside. The license plate was registered under Carry Consulting. Should he follow? Lu Hanzhou typed no. He can't escape. He turned his phone over, screen down, and placed it on the windowsill. The corridor was quiet for a moment. Then faint cries and the dull thud of chairs being knocked over came from the direction of the banquet hall in the distance. He looked up at the ceiling light on the corridor ceiling. The white light of that light shone steadily, without flickering. Lu Hanzhou stood in the corridor for about 3 minutes. The wind outside, carrying the sound of traffic, rushed in through the window. He raised his left hand and glanced at his watch, 10:37. Only 37 minutes had passed since he said I don't want to. But it felt like he had traversed an entire timeline spanning his past and present lives. His phone screen lit up. A message from Lao Zhou. Xinyu's car got on the East City Expressway, heading towards the industrial park. Miss Lin was taken away by her father, leaving through the back door. She didn't cry or make a scene, just walked very slowly. 90% of the guests have left, and a few dozen are still in the banquet hall, asking each other about what happened next. Lu Hanzhou typed, "The banquet hall is sealed off. Do not touch any electronic devices for now. Also, tell the hotel reception that no inquiries about the wedding will be accepted before 3 p.m. today." After replying, he put his phone back in his pocket and walked down the corridor towards the elevator. As he passed a half-open lounge, he heard someone whispering on the phone. The voice urgent, "Yes, the wedding is canceled." President Liu played the video in public. "You immediately check the account balances of those companies under President Chen's name. Transfer what you can." He didn't stop. When the elevator doors opened, he stepped in and pressed the top floor button. The executive conference room on the top floor of the building was empty today. He used his personal access to open the door and sat in the swivel chair by the window. The floor-to-ceiling windows of this conference room faced the financial district skyline, and he could see the blue rooftop signal lights of the Kyushu building appearing dim in the morning sunlight. Lu Hanzhou placed his phone and watch on the table, did nothing, and just sat there watching the buildings outside the window for a while. He hadn't eaten or drunk anything since he opened his eyes in the morning, but he didn't feel hungry. The after-effects of the adrenaline were still coursing through his veins, and his fingertips were slightly numb. He spread his hands out on the table and looked at his palms. The lines were clear. and there were no surgical scars. These hands, which had been too weak to even lift in the final stages of his previous life, now lay flat and steady, without the slightest tremor. About 10 minutes later, the phone rang. Old Zhou sent a second message. Zhao Ming has arrived at headquarters to complete the handover, and Qian's son and the others are also there. Also, I just found a piece of equipment I haven't seen before backstage at the banquet hall. It has a gray metal casing and is in a cabinet next to the electrical box. Should we handle it? Lu Hanzhou replied that don't touch that equipment. I'll arrange for someone to take over in a bit. He dialed a number, and the call connected after only one ring. Seven's voice came through the receiver, slightly hoarse, as if he hadn't rested in a long time. Shin Yu's car stopped downstairs at the Kerry Consulting building in the Chengdong Industrial Park. He went in and hasn't come out. The tracking signal for the metal box you requested has been connected to my backup terminal. The coordinates are currently stationary. How long has he been inside? About 16 minutes. The surveillance cameras at the park entrance captured him meeting someone at the gate. That person was wearing a gray coat and took something that looked like a briefcase. After Shin Yu entered, that person walked in the opposite direction. Lu Hanzhou paused for a moment. Can you confirm what's in the briefcase? We're adjusting the angles of the high-definition cameras on the nearby streets. It'll take a few minutes. Okay. Also, I'll send you a location. There's a gray device next to the power distribution cabinet in the banquet hall. Send someone to retrieve it and check its contents. It might be Shin Yu's server core, or it might be empty. Be careful not to leave any traces when you retrieve it. Received. After hanging up, Lu Hanzhou sent a message to Attorney Li, confirming that the arbitration alliance submission process for this afternoon remained unchanged. Attorney Li replied quickly. All materials are packaged and will be submitted online at 3 p.m. sharp. There's another matter. Lin Wanner just forwarded me an email through her father's account, with a handwritten statement attached, admitting to involvement in document forgery but claiming coercion. Does this email have legal effect? Lu Hanzhou stared at the words coerced. Lin Wanner was beginning to sever ties with Shen Yu. Her actions were almost half a day faster than he had anticipated. In his previous life, she only remembered to write the statement after Shen Yu's company account was frozen. This time, she started before the banquet hall was even completely cleared. He replied to Attorney Li, keep it for now. Don't submit it. Only submit the core evidence I gave you for this afternoon's arbitration. I'll process her email after I confirm it. After sending the message, he finally felt thirsty. He got up and poured himself a glass of water. As the rim touched his lips, he felt a mouth ulcer on the inside of his lower lip. He didn't know when he had bitten it, but it hurt now. Back at his seat, Seven sent a message. Briefcase contents confirmed, a stack of bank drafts. 3 in each denomination, each corresponding to an offshore account of a subsidiary of Kerry Consulting, totaling approximately 12% of Kyushu Group's last quarterly revenue. Shin Yu may be making the final round of fund transfers overseas. Lu Hanzhou put down his cup. 12% of revenue, when converted to concrete figures, was quite considerable. Shin Yu was transferring funds while Lin Wanner was writing the statement of circumstances. These former allies had begun to go their separate ways. He typed, "Can you freeze those 3 drafts?" "Yes, but we need your authorized signature. The time limit is very high. If it's not done before 2 p.m. today, the drafts will enter the overseas clearing process." Lu Hanzhou opened the tablet terminal on his desktop, brought up the remote authorization interface of Kyushu Heart, signed an electronic instruction, and sent it to 7. 10 minutes later, a reply came back. All 3 promissory notes have been intercepted. Shin Yu's offshore account currently has less than 3/1000 of its original available funds. Looking at this number, Lu Hanzhou suddenly recalled the WeChat Moments post Shin Yu made the day after his death in his previous life. The words "new beginning" accompanied by a photo of an office window. Back then, Shin Yu held the entire Kyushu Group's liquid assets, his arrogance at its peak. Now, that money was being withdrawn, one by one, like sand turning in an hourglass. At noon, Lu Hanzhou left the executive conference room. He bumped into the hotel manager in the corridor, a middle-aged woman in a dark gray uniform. She hurried over, looking troubled. "Mr. Lu, there are some of your personal belongings that need to be removed from the banquet hall, along with a few bouquets of flowers and decoration materials. Would you like us to handle this today, or?" Remove everything by 5 p.m. today. Lu Hanzhou said. Treat the decoration materials as wasted goods. I'll come to collect my personal belongings before 3 p.m. Also, leave the electronic equipment in the banquet hall as is for now. Don't touch any power cords before my people come to collect them. The manager breathed a sigh of relief, nodded quickly, and left. Lu Hanzhou returned to his hotel room. The moment he swiped his key card, he smelled the scent he had left in the room yesterday, a faint smell of detergent on his clothes. The lingering aroma of black coffee that had been sitting on the bedside table for half a day. The room was still as he had left it that morning. The blankets weren't made. The curtains were half drawn. An afternoon light was already streaming through the glass onto the carpet. He took off his suit jacket and tossed it onto the back of the chair, plugged in his phone, and went into the bathroom to wash his face. He closed his eyes as cold water splashed on his face, the water dripping from his chin into his collar, making his shoulder and neck muscles tighten instinctively. He leaned against the edge of the sink, staring at his reflection in the mirror. The dark circles under his eyes were a shade deeper than 3 days ago. But his gaze was different from the one he'd seen in the hotel bathroom on the morning of his rebirth. That day, his eyes still held the lingering fear and confusion of his previous life before death. Now, they held only a deep, icy calm. His phone was ringing as he came out of the bathroom. The caller ID showed an unknown number. He answered the phone, and after a 2-second silence, someone spoke. Mr. Lu, this is Xinyu. Lu Hanzhou walked to the window and switched the phone to his other ear. Speak. Xinyu's voice was 2 tones lower than it had been in the tea room yesterday, carrying a rough, abrasive quality. That you've blocked all my funding channels, haven't you? None of the 3 promissory notes have been approved. The bank called me saying the authorized person refused to sign. It was you who did it. You made this call just to confirm this? Xinyu took a rapid breath on the other end of the line, as if he were holding something back. After a few seconds, he spoke again, his speech slowing down, as if he were suppressing something dangerous. Lu Hanzhou, you've pushed me to this point, so I have nothing left to hold back. I have backups of the video you played at your wedding today. If you dare submit the full set of materials to the arbitration alliance, I'll release the parts of the video that weren't shown. Think carefully. Is there really only one outcome between us, that you win and I lose? Lu Hanzhou walked to the window, his fingers resting on the edge of the window frame. Outside the glass, the mid-July sunlight shone brightly, and the traffic on the ground flowed like slowly trickling metallic liquid. Which parts are you referring to as backups? The complete version of our conversation in the tea room? Or the surveillance footage of you waiting for me outside the equipment room? Xinyu, if you really had something to turn things around, you wouldn't be sitting in Carey Consulting's office calling me today. There was a long silence on the other end of the line, so long that Lu Hanzhou thought the other person had hung up. He heard a barely audible sentence squeezed from the receiver. What exactly do you want? Money? Shares? Or do you want me to apologize to you in front of the media? Name your price. Lu Hanzhou withdrew his fingers from the window frame. He turned his back to the window, watching the shadows, cut diagonally by the sunlight, spread across the carpet in the room. What I want, you can no longer give me. When you used my signature to forge documents and send me to the ICU, the option of apologizing was already removed from the table. I'm not calling you today to negotiate, to inform you that the Arbitration Alliance's formal acceptance notice will be sent to your personal email before 5 p.m. Please take a look at the attached list of evidence in advance, so you won't be caught off guard. He hung up the phone. As he took the phone away from his ear, he saw a message with the number 7 pop up on the screen. The gray device next to the hotel's electrical cabinet has been removed. Preliminary inspection results. There is an encrypted file package inside the server core, protected by 3 password locks. Decryption time is estimated to take 6 to 8 hours. In addition, Lin Warner just sent the same email through a third-party channel to the editors of 3 local newspapers, containing an accusation of being forced into mental control. The email was signed in her father's name. Lu Hanzhou read the message twice. Lin Warner changed her strategy, upgrading from coercion to mental control, the ambiguity of which was just on the edge of being unfalsifiable. If all 3 newspapers published it simultaneously, the public opinion would become muddy, and the Arbitration Alliance might be influenced by public pressure when handling formal cases. He replied to 7. Send me the contact information for the editors of those 3 newspapers. Also, focus on the timestamp when decrypting the encrypted file package. I need to know when that server was first activated. After sending the message, he paced back and forth in the room 3 times. The carpet absorbed his footsteps, and the only sound in the room was the slight hum of the air conditioner vents. He stopped when he reached the bedside table for the 3rd time, reached for the charging phone on the table, and dialed Lynn Warner's number. It rang once and was answered. Lynn Warner's breathing came through the receiver, uneven, occasionally punctuated by sniffling sobs. I've seen the email you wrote, Lu Hanzhou said. It was sent in your father's name. Lynn Warner paused on the other end of the phone. When you saw it isn't important. What's important is that I've already sent it. Are you calling to ask me to retract it? Or do you have other demands? Lu Hanzhou walked to the window, watching the skyline of the financial district in the distance, outlined by the midday sun into sharp, jagged shapes. I won't let you retract it. Send it. Send it all you want. But you'd better think carefully before you do. Your statement of facts is still on my lawyer's desk, unsubmitted. If I see any report about mind control in those 3 newspapers, your statement of facts will be added to the arbitration materials as an attachment the next morning. Weigh it yourself and see which is more in your best interest. There was a pause in breathing on the other end of the phone for about 3 seconds. Then Lynn Warner's voice resumed, this time with a flattened, high-pitched quality. Lu Hanzhou, you really know how to pick your weaknesses. I learned it from you. He hung up the phone, this time without giving the other person a chance to speak. A gust of wind rustled the leaves of the plane trees below. Lu Hanzhou stood in the dappled sunlight cast by the trees, plugging his phone back into its charger. The instant the screen went dark, he saw his reflection in the black glass, a long, thin silhouette, his collar slightly askew. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, he went downstairs to the hotel restaurant and ordered a light meal. Halfway through his meal, his phone vibrated on the table. 7 had sent 3 contact numbers for newspaper editors, ending with the message, the first layer of the encrypted file has been cracked. The file contains a timed trigger program, set to trigger at 3 p.m. today, targeting a backup server under Lynn Warner's father's name. Upon triggering, it will automatically push an open letter drafted in Lin Guoqiang's name, accusing the Kyushu group of internal management chaos leading to the mental instability of its decision-makers. Lu Hanzhou put down his chopsticks. He stared at the phrases time trigger and 3 p.m. today, his fingertips tapping lightly on the table. Shun Yu had set up a countdown plan. He had preset the automatic sending at 3 p.m. when he installed the server this morning. This meant that even if Shun Yu himself was under control, the open letter would still be sent out on time from Lin Guoqiang's name, and Lin Guoqiang himself would be completely unaware of this. Lu Hanzhou picked up his phone and dialed the number 7. Can the source code of that trigger program be reverse engineered? Yes, but it will take time. If we don't reverse engineer it and instead physically disconnect the server power, it might trigger the preset backup channel. That program has 3 layers of redundancy. So if 1 layer is disconnected, there are still 2 layers left. How long do you need? Completing it before 3 p.m. is risky, but I'll try my best. Also, I glanced at the contents of that open letter. The wording is much stronger than the statement of the situation that Lynn Warner wrote herself. It mentions the specific date and diagnosis details of your hospitalization last year, information that can only be accessed through the internal system. Shinyu may have obtained your complete medical records a long time ago. Lu Hanzhou's hand holding the water glass paused in midair. He had indeed been hospitalized once last year, for mild pneumonia. For 4 days, Lynn Warner stayed by his bedside the entire time he was hospitalized, bringing him pork rib soup for 3 days. He couldn't remember the taste of the soup, but the image of her sitting by his bedside peeling an apple suddenly flashed into his mind. The fruit knife twirling twice in her hand as she peeled the apple into a single, hanging strip. Disconnect that program, he said, and cover its 3 layers of redundancy with a backup plan. Give me 5 minutes before you disconnect. I'll find a place to inform Lin Guoqiang about this first. He hung up the phone and dialed Lin Guoqiang's number. A woman answered the phone, her voice hoarse. Hello? This is Lu Hanzhou. Is Uncle Lin there? There was a 2-second silence on the other end of the line. Then Lin Guoqiang's deep voice rang out. Lu Hanzhou. Just tell me what you want to say. There will be an open letter issued in your name at 3 o'clock this afternoon, containing negative accusations about Jojo Group and me personally. That letter has nothing to do with you. It's an automated program preset by Shinyu. I'm dealing with it now, but until it's finished, if anyone calls you about it, just say you know nothing about it. Lin Guoqiang took a breath on the other end of the line, his voice carrying a sandpaper-like quality. That beast Shinyu. Using my name? It will be finished before 3 o'clock. Don't worry too much. Lu Hanzhou, Lin Guoqiang called out to him, his voice suddenly lowering. Warner sat on the floor crying for 3 hours straight today. I know she did something wrong, but I'm her father. Can you? Lu Hanzhou waited 2 seconds for him to finish speaking. But Lin Guoqiang didn't continue. Only heavy breathing could be heard on the other end of the phone. I need to deal with business first, Lu Hanzhou said. He hung up the phone and placed it face down on the table. The bowl of noodles in front of him was soggy, with a thin film of oil on the surface of the soup. He picked up his chopsticks, stirred the noodles, and continued eating. At 2:10 p.m., Seven's message came in. Second layer of password for the encrypted file package has been cracked. 2 of the backup channels for triggering the program have been shut down, leaving 1. I've located the physical node of that backup channel in the 3rd rack on the south wall of the server room on the 3rd floor of Carey Consulting. If you can arrange for someone to physically cut off the power to that node, I can complete the complete reset before 3 p.m. Lu Hanzhou wiped his mouth and stood up. He didn't have anyone he could send to the park to cut off the power. At least not someone who wouldn't leave a trace. He thought for a moment, then dialed the hotel reception. Could you check if a man in a gray coat was near the banquet hall around 11:30 this afternoon? The receptionist checked for 2 minutes and replied, yes. Sir. That man said he came to retrieve a briefcase he left behind. He stood at the banquet hall entrance for a few minutes and then left. Lu Hanzhou hung up. The person Shinyu had arranged in advance had retrieved the briefcase. But that person's route was likely from directly coming from the park. If that person was still near the hotel, or had already been sent back by Shinyu to restart the server rack. He sent a message to 7. Does the server room on the 3rd floor of Carey Consulting have a remote power-off interface? The reply, yes. But it requires a level 2 authorization code from the server room administrator. I can crack it. It will take about 12 minutes. Crack it. Notify me of the progress. He held his phone in his hand, standing by the window in the restaurant, looking at the street outside. 12 minutes is a short time under normal circumstances, but in the face of the countdown, every second felt like a rubber band. He counted his heartbeats, and around the 730th, his phone vibrated. 7. Completed. All 3 layers of redundancy cleared. The trigger program will not start again. Lu Hanzhou put his phone in his pocket. He stood there and counted his heartbeats 10 more times before walking back towards the elevator. The afternoon sunlight streamed in through the restaurant's floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a long, thin shadow on the floor behind him. The elevator doors opened and closed, the numbers jumping up one by one. At exactly 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Lu Hanzhou sat in the swivel chair in the executive conference room, looking at the Heart of Kyushu backend logs on his tablet. There were no abnormal push notifications, no documents issued in Lin Guoqiang's name. The time bomb that Shinyu had set up had been completely defused 3 minutes before detonation. He took a screenshot of the log page and saved it to the archive folder, then switched to another interface. The online submission port of the Arbitration Alliance showed materials received complete, the progress bar reaching 100%. He turned off the tablet and turned his chair towards the window. The afternoon sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a slanted glow across the table. A new notification lit up on the phone screen. Lin Warner's revocation letters sent to the editors of 3 newspapers have been confirmed delivered. Lu Hanzhou looked at the message, flipped the phone face down on the table, and left. The skyline outside the window appeared sharp and clear in the midday light, and the blue signal light on the roof of the Kyushu building glowed quietly. At 3:20 p.m., Lu Hanzhou stood up from the swivel chair in the executive conference room. The sunlight outside the window changed from the pale white of midday to the warm golden hue of the afternoon, casting a long, slanted bright spot on the table. He put his tablet in the drawer, picked up his phone, and left the room. As the elevator descended, he glanced again at the latest message from Chi that the 3rd layer of password for the encrypted file package was being cracked. and it was expected to take several more hours. The revocation letters Lin Warner sent to the 3 newspapers had all been confirmed delivered, and the editors had replied that they would not publish them. Shinyu was still inside the Kerry Consulting building, but the park's surveillance footage showed that 2 people entered the building around 2:50 p.m., carrying briefcases, their identities unknown. Lu Hanzhou read the message twice. The phrase unidentified appearing at this time was not a good sign. Shinyu's funding channels were blocked, and the arbitration materials had been submitted. Logically, he should have run out of options. But if those 2 people were Shun Yu's last line of defense, for example, the actual operator of Lin Warner's father's backup server, or an old employee of the Medical Appraisal Center who helped him forge medical records, then there was still room for maneuver. He stepped out of the hotel lobby, the afternoon heat of July hitting him head-on. He stood in the shade by the door and dialed number 7. Had the images of those 2 people been captured? Yes. One of their facial features matched someone, the archives administrator at the Medical Appraisal Center who helped Lin Warner retrieve the blank electrocardiogram report 3 years ago. He left the company 6 months ago, and his whereabouts were unknown. The other person's identity hadn't been matched yet. Lu Hanzhou switched the phone to his other ear. How deep was that administrator's connection with Shinyu back then? Deep. He was the one who handled the entire process of borrowing and replacing the LY 317 report. After that, Shinyu transferred a sum of money to him through an intermediary account, enough for him to pay off his mortgage early. His appearance downstairs at Kerry Consulting this time was most likely due to Shun Yu's recall for a final cleanup, such as destroying certain paper backups within the park, or taking away the last piece of physical evidence in Shun Yu's possession. Lu Hanzhou was silent for 2 seconds. He needed to speed things up. If Shun Yu still held the original blank electrocardiogram report or other undisclosed physical evidence, the arbitration process might be stalled at some point. Although the biometric data bound to Kyushu Heart's smart contract had legal priority over any paper evidence, public opinion and psychological warfare sometimes didn't consider priority. "I'll wait for you to send a car to pick me up at the hotel entrance," he said. To Kerry Consulting. "Going alone?" "Yes, alone." She paused for a moment on the other end of the phone, then spoke up, "Mr. Lu, it's quite risky for you to go to the park now. Shinyu has at least 2 people with him, and his behavior under extreme emotional states is unpredictable. Moreover, the management system of the Kerry Consulting building is not within Kyushu Heart's coverage area. You won't receive any technical support if you go in." Lu Hanzhou looked at the traffic on the street in front of him. "That's why you have to go even more. If the original blank ECG report is still in Shin Yu's hands, I need to see it disposed of with my own eyes. Do me a favor before I arrive at the park. Temporarily connect the building's security system to the backup node of Kyushu Heart. Full control isn't necessary. Just the ability to synchronize real-time footage from the outside is enough. Give me 15 minutes. Okay." He hung up the phone and stood in the shadows outside the hotel, counting cars. A black sedan stopped in front of him, its window rolling down, revealing half of Lao Zhou's face in the driver's seat. "Mr. Lu, get in." Lu Hanzhou bent down and sat in the passenger seat, fastening his seatbelt. "How did you know I was going out?" "Lao Zhou started the car. She called me and said you needed a car." The reflection of the hotel's glass doors receded in the rearview mirror. As the car turned onto the main road, Lao Zhou glanced at Lu Hanzhou. "Mr. Lu, those things you put at the wedding this morning, Qian Sun and the others have already packed them up and left." Zhao Ming finished the handover and sat in the HR department all afternoon, neither leaving nor speaking. The 2 remaining people from the legal department asked me about the next steps, and I said I'd wait for your instructions. Lu Hanzhou straightened his seat a little. "Keep those 2 from the legal department for now. Don't touch them. When you get back, set the access control permissions for all core departments at headquarters to a daily reset mode. Distribute them all before 9 a.m. every morning. Any not received by 9 a.m. will automatically forfeit." Old Zhou nodded. "Understood." As the car drove onto the Cross River Bridge, Lu Hanzhou glanced out the window. The river water shimmered with tiny white scales in the afternoon light, and trucks slowly climbed the bridge. He took out his phone. She had sent a new message. "Kerry Consulting's security system has been connected to the backup node." The building's heat source scan shows 4 active signal points in the south-facing server room area on the 3rd floor, 3 moving and 1 stationary. Does the coordinate of the stationary one match the rack location I mentioned earlier? Yes. The other 2 moving signals are moving from the 1st floor to the 2nd floor. They will likely have already converged by the time you arrive. Lu Hanzhou turned his phone screen towards Lao Zhou. Where in the industrial park is this building? Is there a side entrance or an underground passage? Lao Zhou glanced at the screen. Carey Consulting is just a 3-story detached building with 2 entrances, front and back, and no underground passage. There's a freight elevator exit on the side leading to a back alley. But that alley is a dead end. 20 minutes later, the car stopped on the side of the road in the industrial park. Lu Hanzhou unbuckled his seatbelt, letting Lao Zhou wait in the car, and got out himself. The July wind, carrying the distinctive smell of industrial area mixed with engine oil and dust, assaulted his face. He was wearing the dark suit he wore at the wedding that morning, his tie half loosened and hanging outside his shirt collar, standing out conspicuously in the park's environment. He walked around to the main entrance of Carey Consulting. An A4-sized printed notice of closed for interior renovation was pasted on the glass door. Through the glass, he could see the empty lobby on the 1st floor, the floor covered with a layer of dust that hadn't been cleaned properly. He pushed the door. It was locked. He took a half step back and pulled out his phone. Just then, a message from Chi came in. The electronic lock at the side freight elevator entrance is an old model. I'll send you a decryption code. Just stick it to the sensor area for 5 seconds. After you go in, turn right and take the stairs to the 3rd floor. Don't take the freight elevator. There's an audible alarm. Lu Hanzhou followed the instructions and found the side freight elevator entrance. A dark green iron door stood there, with a palm-sized sensor panel next to the door frame. He pressed his phone screen against it. The screen displayed a series of flashing numbers for 5 seconds. Then the red light on the panel beeped and turned green. The door opened. The corridor inside was narrow, the cement steps dusty, and an emergency light on the wall emitted a dim, cold glow. He walked up the steps. The sound of his leather shoes on the cement amplified several times in the narrow space. He paused at the corner on the 2nd floor. Next to the floor indicator above was a half-open wooden door, and voices could be heard coming from the crack. Just burn it. Burn it clean. He was urging them urgently, saying it had to be done before 5 p.m. A man's voice, visibly tired, spoke quickly and laboredly. Another voice, deeper, after burning those papers. Should we take the original document he has with us? I think he's not in a good mood today. He might change his mind later. Take it. The original is in my bag. I'll give it to President Chun for review after burning it. Lu Hanzhou stood still. The 2 voices from the crack in the wooden door were very close to him, no more than 5 meters away. He slowly took half a step back, hiding his shadow in the shadow of the wall at the corner of the stairs. His phone screen lit up. A new message from Chi. The static signal on the 3rd floor is still in place. Those 2 people lingered in the northeast corner office on the 2nd floor for 4 minutes, most likely searching for documents. Your path up is temporarily unobstructed. He turned off his phone and continued walking up to the 3rd floor. The 3rd floor was cleaner than the 2nd. The baseboards in the corners were new, and at the end of the corridor was a frosted glass door with a sign that read Integrated Computer Room. The door was ajar, and the low hum of machinery could be faintly heard from inside. He pushed the door open. The server room wasn't large, about 20 square meters, with 3 rows of server racks against the wall. The innermost rack had a half-open metal door, revealing the heat sinks of the server cores and tangled cables. A middle-aged man in a dark gray shirt was squatting in front of the rack with his back to the door, holding a screwdriver and disassembling something. Hearing the noise, he turned around sharply. A thin, long face, high cheekbones, sunken eyes, and a black mole near the corner of his mouth. Lu Hanzhou had seen this face in the photos Chi had sent, the former archivist from the Medical Appraisal Center. The 2 stared at each other for about 2 seconds. The archivist didn't put down the screwdriver, but his fingers tightened. You are? You don't need to know who I am, Lu Hanzhou said, walking into the server room and closing the frosted glass door behind him. Is there a paper document in a sealed bag in that rack you're disassembling? The administrator's eyes darted around, his gaze sweeping back and forth between Lu Hanzhou's suit and loosely tied tie. He slowly stood up. A screwdriver hanging at his side that you're Lu Hanzhou. Is that document in the cabinet? The administrator took a half step back, his back against the metal door of the cabinet. Yes, but President Shun instructed that it shouldn't be given to anyone. Unless he calls himself. Has he called you? The administrator paused. His left hand was in his trouser pocket, the faint light from his phone screen shining through the fabric, showing 3 red missed call markers. Lu Hanzhou noticed the half-open white seal on the edge of his pocket, the plastic seal of a sealed bag. The original is on you, Lu Hanzhou said. What you told your partner about bringing the original to President Shun for review was part of the plan. But you didn't actually intend to give it to him. You burned a photocopy in your backpack. You kept the original, planning to use it to ask Shinyu for another sum of money after this is over. The administrator's fingers suddenly clenched the edge of the sealed bag in his pocket. His lips were pressed into a thin line. The skin above his cheekbones taut and paled out. You're talking nonsense. You've been unemployed for 6 months. The mortgage is paid off, but your credit score is ruined. And you can't find a proper job. Shinyu called you here today because he really had no one else to use. But you know in your heart that his accounts are frozen. And even if you return the original documents to him, you won't get any money. Lu Hanzhou took 2 steps forward, stopping less than a step away from the administrator. Give me the original documents. And this matter ends here. I can have the legal department issue a clarification regarding your credit score issue, proving that your work at the appraisal center was not maliciously irregular. The administrator's breathing quickened. The sealed bag in his pocket was crumpled into a ball, the plastic seal protruding from the fabric, trembling slightly in the airflow from the server rack's cooling fan. Why do you think I'll believe you? You just canceled your wedding this morning, putting President Shun in such a difficult position. You're the kind of person who's capable of turning your back on someone. I'm capable of turning my back on someone, but I'm not capable of defaulting on a debt. Lu Hanzhou pulled out his phone from his inner pocket, showed him Attorney Li's contact information, and said, "You can call this number now. Once connected, have him give you a verbal legal guarantee. You may not trust me, but you should at least acknowledge Attorney Li's authority. He's the resident legal advisor for the Arbitration Alliance. With 23 years of practice and not a single case he's handled has resulted in a dispute." The administrator's gaze fell on the contact information on the phone screen, his Adam's apple bobbing. The hum of the server rack's cooling fans filled the space between them. After a while, he let out a heavy breath, pulled the white sealed bag from his pocket, and handed it over, his fingers still trembling. It really is the original document inside. I dismantled the server rack to take it out. President Shin didn't know. He said everything in the server room had to be cleared out before 5 o'clock, and I wasn't comfortable leaving the original document in the rack. Lu Hanzhou took the sealed bag and glanced at the paper inside through the plastic seal. It was a folded electrocardiogram report, with the logo of the Medical Appraisal Center printed at the top, the date field blank, and Lu Hanzhou's name written in pen in the patient's name field. The edges of the paper were yellowed, and several creases were so deep they were almost torn. He put the sealed bag into his inner bag. Your colleague on the second floor? Yes. He was burning those useless photocopies and old contracts. The administrator retreated to the server rack, his fingers unconsciously tracing the edge of the metal door. When I came up, I told him I was cleaning the servers. He thought it would take a long time. Lu Hanzhou turned and walked towards the server room door. As he pushed open the frosted glass door, he glanced back. The administrator stood there, screwdriver still in his hand, his shoulders hunched, his whole body looking like a skeleton had been removed. Go through the side door, Lu Hanzhou said. Leave the park now. Go to headquarters tomorrow afternoon to report to Attorney Li. He'll arrange the follow-up. The administrator nodded, said nothing, and bent down to start tidying up the tools scattered beside the server rack. Lu Hanzhou walked out of the server room and down the stairs. As he reached the corner on the second floor, he heard the click of a lighter coming from the northeast corner of the office, followed by the faint crackling of burning paper. He didn't linger, continuing down to the ground floor and pushing back out through the iron gate at the freight elevator entrance. The afternoon sun blew the park's pavement white. He walked through a side alley back to his parking spot. Old Joe was leaning against the car door smoking. Seeing him approach, he immediately stubbed out his cigarette. Got it? Lu Hanzhou opened the passenger door and got in, pulling the sealed bag from the inner pocket and placing it on the dashboard. Got it. Let's go back to headquarters. Old Joe started the car. The detached building of Carey Consulting gradually shrank in the rearview mirror, its blue glass windows reflecting the afternoon light, so bright it made him squint. Lu Hanzhou held the sealed bag in his hand and examined it. The yellowed paper had a small, dark brown spot on the edge, like ink or something else. He leaned closer and smelled it. The paper carried the musty smell and dust characteristic of an old archive. He put the sealed bag away again and leaned back in his seat. As the car drove out of the park gate, he glanced at his phone. 3 new messages. The first was from 7. The third layer of the encrypted file package has been deciphered. The first message was a personnel list of 12 people, with notes indicating their respective roles within the Kyushu group and the specific amounts of money they received from Shinyu. The list was time-stamped 3 months prior. The second message came from an unknown number. Mr. Lu, I'm the one burning documents on the second floor. I stopped burning them after you left, and I haven't touched the remaining materials. I can send them to you if you need them. The third message was from Attorney Lee. The Arbitration Alliance's working meeting this afternoon was held ahead of schedule, and my materials are being reviewed as the first priority proposal. A preliminary ruling is expected before 8 p.m. tonight. Lu Hanzhou read through the 3 messages in order, his finger pausing on the second one. The person burning the documents had proactively stopped burning and contacted him, indicating that the administrator had spoken with him after coming downstairs. That person had chosen to switch sides like the administrator, withdrawing from Shinyu's camp. He replied to the unknown number, "Keep the materials safe and don't touch them. We'll hand them over to Attorney Lee for processing tomorrow." Then he switched to Attorney Lee's chat window. "Notify me immediately after the preliminary ruling is issued." After sending the message, he placed his phone on his lap, leaned back in his seat, and closed his eyes. The car cruised smoothly on the expressway, the low-frequency vibrations of the engine transmitting through the seat, slowly relaxing the muscles in his back. The original electrocardiogram report in the sealed bag, pressed against his chest through the inside pocket of his suit jacket, had the cool touch of paper. He closed his eyes and thought for a while about what he needed to do next at the Arbitration Alliance's ruling. The handling of the 12-person list. The complete elimination of the potential risks posed by the open letter in Lin Guiqiang's name, and Lin Wanner's current whereabouts. All the threads were tightening in the same direction. But he knew that before the final result was settled, any loose thread would create a hole in the entire network. The car exited the overpass and entered the main road of the financial district, where the buildings outside the window began to cluster together densely again. Lu Hanzhou opened his eyes and saw that the blue rooftop signal light of the Kyushu building had changed from the dimness of the afternoon to the brightness of the evening. It was evening time. He pulled the sealed bag out of the inner pocket again and held it up to his eyes, looking through the plastic wrap at the yellowed, blank electrocardiogram report. Aside from the name Lu Hanzhou in the patient's name column, there was no other handwritten content on the entire sheet. Lin Wanner had used this very sheet to replace his real medical records, leaving the false conclusion of a risk of cryptogenic myocardial infarction hanging on his medical record for 3 years. For those 3 years, he saw the replaced version during his annual routine checkups, only discovering the timestamp discrepancy between the electronic and paper versions when he actively retrieved the original records after his rebirth. He put the sealed bag back into the inner pocket and leaned back in his seat. As the car stopped in front of the Kyushu building, a thin layer of sunset clouds gathered on the horizon, their orange edges peeking through the gaps in the clouds. Lu Hanzhou opened the car door, and as his foot stepped onto the marble floor in front of the headquarters building, his phone vibrated in his pocket. A message from Attorney Lee. "The preliminary ruling is expected to favor your chain of evidence, but there's a procedural time issue requiring a supplementary document tonight regarding the confirmation of the ownership of those technology patents under your name before the marriage. The Arbitration Alliance requested a notarized copy of the original RD logs. Can you have them ready by 10 p.m. tonight?" Lu Hanzhou stood on the steps at the building entrance, read the message, and then glanced at the blue traffic light on the roof. He had locked the electronic copy of the RD logs in the highest level encrypted area of Kyushu Heart the day he was reborn. Retrieving it would only take a few minutes. He typed a reply that "I'll send it to you before 8 p.m. Then he pushed open the glass door of the headquarters building. The lobby was brightly lit. and the young woman on duty at the front desk instinctively stood up when she saw him enter. He nodded to her, passed through the access control, and stepped into the elevator. As the floor numbers jumped up, he looked down at the toes of his shoes. A thin layer of dust from the Cary Consulting Park floor clung to the black leather, and there was a tiny scratch on the toe. The elevator doors opened, and he walked into the headquarters corridor. The sunset outside the window had deepened in color, a blend of orange and purple, the light filtering through the glass, spreading a warm hue across the floor. He pushed open the door to his office, took off his suit jacket and hung it on the back of his chair, then took out a sealed bag and placed it in the center of his desk. Then I opened the terminal and brought up the encrypted backup of the RD log and started preparing the export file for the notarized copy. As darkness crept an inch by inch outside the window, the blue signal light of the Kyushu building shone like a quiet star against the night sky behind him. At 7:40 p.m., Liu Hanzhou sent a notarized copy of the RD log to attorney Li via an encrypted channel. The notification sound of successful email transmission rang briefly in the quiet office, then was swallowed by the low hum of the air conditioner. He leaned back in his chair, watching the sky outside darken completely. The office buildings in the financial district lit up one after another in a grid pattern, like a giant circuit board stretching to the horizon. He picked up the sealed bag from the desk and held it up to his eyes. The electrocardiogram report paper, illuminated by the office overhead light through its plastic wrapping, showed a yellowish hue characteristic of old paper. The penmanship in the patient's name column was even and clean, and compared with the handwriting of other reports from the same period in the Medical Appraisal Center's archives, it was indeed written by the same archivist. He had the exact figures on his phone: how much Lin Warner spent on the blank report, how much she bribed the administrator to replace the file, and how much she got the doctor to add extra lines to the medical examination notes. These figures were currently in the Arbitration Alliance's electronic evidence database, awaiting review. His phone screen lit up. A message from Attorney Lee, notarized copy received. The Arbitration Alliance is still conducting its final deliberations, with results expected around 8:30. Also, there's something else. Shen Yu submitted a supplementary explanation to the Arbitration Alliance at 5:20 p.m. today in his personal capacity. He claimed that he participated in the forgery of documents under Lin Warner's instructions, and that all operations were carried out according to her orders. This explanation was included in the deliberation materials. Liu Hanzhou stared at the words under Lin Warner's instructions for a few seconds. Shen Yu was starting to shift blame onto Lin Warner. This happened earlier than he expected. He thought Shen Yu would at least hold out until the ruling before considering disassociation. But unexpectedly, he directly used Lin Warner as a shield during the Arbitration Alliance's deliberations. He replied to Attorney Lee, "Was that supplementary explanation submitted before or after my main chain of evidence?" "After. My materials were submitted to the deliberation process at 3:40 p.m. today, while his supplementary explanation was submitted at 5:20 p.m. Your materials have priority in terms of time sequence." "Okay, regardless of the outcome. Don't announce it publicly yet. Give me an hour," Attorney Lee replied. "Understood." Liu Hanzhou placed his phone face down on the table, picked up the sealed bag, and checked the seal from the back. The plastic seal was intact and undamaged. The sealing line was even and straight, and there were no signs of it being opened a second time. He put it in the first drawer on the right side of his desk, locked it, and put the key in his inner pocket. At 8 p.m. sharp, there was a knock on the office door. Old Joe pushed the door open, holding a glass of warm water on the corner of the table. Mr. Liu. The receptionist downstairs said a man claiming to be surnamed Liu has arrived and wants to see Attorney Lee. I told him to wait in the meeting room. What do you think we should do? The man who burned the documents has arrived. Liu Hanzhou took the water glass and took a sip. Tell him to wait. Attorney Lee will handle things once he finishes the arbitration. Also, go back to HR and notify each person on that list of 12. They should come to the headquarters conference room at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Those who are absent don't need to come. Old Joe acknowledged and left, the door clicking softly as it closed. Liu Hanzhou walked to the window with his water glass. The city lights condensed into a blurry halo on the glass. He placed his palm on the glass surface, the cool touch spreading from his palm. The cold air from the air conditioner blowing down from the vent above his head to the back of his neck. The phone rang, the screen displaying 7. The ruling is in. The voice came through the receiver, carrying a hint of relief. The Arbitration Alliance delayed the deliberation process after receiving Shun Yu's supplementary explanation at 5:20. But their internal vote just came out. They fully support your main chain of evidence. Shin Yu and Lin Wanner's supplementary materials were deemed contradictory and lacking corroboration, and are therefore rejected. The ruling will be officially issued at 9 p.m. tonight, at which time all relevant parties will be notified. Lu Hanzhou withdrew his hand from the glass. What exactly did Shin Yu's supplementary explanation say? He said that all the planning of forging documents was led by Lin Wanner, and he was just carrying it out. He also said that he had a recording that proved that Lin Wanner personally instructed him during their phone call on the evening of July 14th to make sure Lu Hanzhou signs the papers before the wedding. The Arbitration Alliance retrieved the recording and concluded that there were editing marks in the background of the recording, and the voice print comparison showed that some key sentences were spliced together. Lu Hanzhou was silent for a moment. Shin Yu even prepared to edit the recording, but the editing was too rough and was caught by the Arbitration Alliance's technical identification. This made Lin Wanner's situation even more delicate. Shin Yu was deemed to have contradictions in his statements to a greater extent than her. The label of mastermind might not ultimately fall solely on Lin Wanner, but it wouldn't be completely removed from Shin Yu either. The ruling will be issued at 9 o'clock. He said, "Before that, I need to do one thing. Can you help me confirm where Lin Wanner is now?" 3 minutes. Lu Hanzhou hung up the phone and returned to his desk. He turned the air conditioner down 1 degree, and the cool air blowing down from above made him a little more awake. While his phone screen was lit up on the desktop waiting for a message, he quickly scanned the list of 12 people again. The names corresponded to the departments, the amount of money in the remarks column, and the timestamps. The amount of money each person received ranged from 6 to 7 figures. Quite a wide range. But the common point was that the dates on which everyone received money were concentrated within the past 6 months, which was the period when Shin Yu began to intensively plan the equity seizure. 3 minutes later, 7 arrived with a message. Lin Wanner left her parents' residence at 4 o'clock this afternoon and took a taxi to a hotel in the east of the city. She is currently staying in the top-floor suite of the hotel. Her mother accompanied her. Lu Hanzhou looked at the words her mother. Lin Wanner had not made a public appearance since being taken away by her father from the wedding venue this morning, and had remained silent since issuing the withdrawal letter this afternoon. Her mother's presence meant that she at least had an emotional support, no matter how long that support would last. He picked up his phone and dialed Lin Wanner's number. It was answered on the 7th ring. The voice on the other end was very hoarse, as if she had been crying all afternoon and her vocal cords were swollen. "You called me." The arbitration ruling was issued at 9 o'clock. Lu Hanzhou said, "Fully supporting my chain of evidence. Shin Yu submitted a supplementary statement this afternoon, shifting the main responsibility onto you." The Arbitration Alliance determined that his statement contained signs of editing and did not accept it. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. Lu Hanzhou placed his phone on the table with the hands-free mode on, and could hear very faint breathing sounds and the hum of the air conditioner in the hotel room. Nearly 30 seconds passed before Lin Wanner's voice returned, softer and slower than before. That he pushed it to me. "Yes, you called specifically to tell me this. Is there something you want me to do?" Lin Wanner's voice suddenly became a little sharp, as if pricked by something, then immediately subsided. "Or do you want to hear me say I lost?" "Fine, I lost. Are you satisfied now?" Lu Hanzhou picked up the phone, turned off the speakerphone, and put it to his ear. "I need you to do one thing. After the ruling is issued at 9 o'clock, Shin Yu's name will be added to the Arbitration Alliance's commercial blacklist, and his personal credit score will be reduced to 0 within 24 hours. But your name will be placed on the observation list because of the connection to that electrocardiogram report from 3 years ago. If you want to be removed from the observation list in advance, you need to submit a complete, independent statement severing ties with Shin Yu within 48 hours after the ruling is issued. The content must be specific to the time, place, and person who handled it. If you have time to write this tonight, I can have attorney Lee send you the template." There was a 2-second silence on the other end of the phone. Lin Wanner's breathing became a little heavier. "That you're willing to let me be removed from the observation period early?" "It's not because I'm willing. but because if your position on the observation list isn't changed, some cross-departmental cooperation reviews within the group will be affected. My priority in handling this matter is to get the business running normally. Whether you write it or not is your business. I'm just providing the channel. Lin Warner didn't answer immediately. In the silence, Lu Hanzhou heard a middle-aged woman's voice on the other end say softly, "Write it. Once you write it, it'll be over." Then Lin Warner snorted, as if blowing her nose or wiping her face. "Send me the template," she said. "I'll write it and send it to you tonight." Lu Hanzhou hung up the phone. He forwarded lawyer Li's contact information to Lin Warner, adding, "Get the template from him." Then he exited the chat and placed his phone face down on the table. The night outside the window was completely dark. The white light from the office ceiling light reflected his reflection in the glass, a crooked collar, a tie that hadn't been untied, and a few strands of white hair on his forehead illuminated by the light. He reached up and pulled off his tie, wrapped it twice, and put it in the drawer. He unbuttoned the top button of his shirt. At 9 o'clock sharp, his phone screen lit up. The official arbitration award notification from the Arbitration Alliance was delivered via encrypted email, with the complete award document in PDF format attached. He quickly glanced through the contents. The main chain of evidence was entirely accepted. Lin Warner and Shun Yu's forgery of signatures was characterized as commercial fraud and clear intent to embezzle. Shin Yu was blacklisted due to contradictory evidence and false statements. Lin Warner was placed on the observation list for submitting an explanation and withdrawing the false public letter, with the additional condition that she could be removed earlier if she submitted a declaration of separation within 48 hours. After reading the award through, he forwarded it to Lao Zhou and the legal department for their records. Then he logged out of his email and saw another message from Attorney Li. "The award has been issued, and Shin Yu should have received it as well. Just now, the Arbitration Alliance system notified me that a newly submitted evidence stream was being uploaded from Shun Yu's personal terminal. The content is unknown, and the file size is about 200 megabytes. Shin Yu is still uploading things after the award was issued." Lu Hanzhou stared at the 200 megabyte size and speculated. It might be the last batch of scanned physical evidence he hadn't had time to process. Or it could be something else. He replied to Attorney Li, "Can you intercept it?" "No, you can't. He's using the Arbitration Alliance's public upload port, a compliant channel, but there's a 24-hour review and caching period after the content enters the system, and it won't be included in the official materials until tomorrow afternoon. If you're interested, I can preview the file title through backend permissions. The title is Lu Hanzhou Personal Medical Record Supplementary File.rar. Medical Records Supplementary File. Lu Hanzhou's thumb hovered above the screen for 2 seconds. Shin Yu still had his medical records? Besides the replaced ECG report, what else was there? He dialed the number 7. Besides the list of 12 people. Are there any other folders on that server in Carey Consulting's server room? Yes. After cracking the 3rd layer of password, we can see the entire directory structure. Besides the personnel list, there's an encrypted subfolder named with a date number. It hasn't been cracked yet due to time constraints, but the file size matches this supplementary medical record file you mentioned. Start cracking that subfolder now. I need to know what's inside. Give me 40 minutes. Lu Hanzhou hung up the phone. He stood by the window, looking at the city night outside, the lights of the financial district reflecting off the glass like shattered gold. Shin Yu uploaded a compressed file related to his medical records at the exact same second the ruling was issued. The timing was too precise, meaning the file was prepared in advance and set to automatically trigger the upload the moment the ruling was issued. 40 minutes. He leaned against the windowsill, counting his heartbeats, the air conditioner blowing coolly on the back of his neck. The office door was pushed open a crack, and old Zhou poked his head in. "President Liu. That guy surnamed Liu downstairs has been waiting for over an hour, still sitting in the meeting room. Should we arrange accommodation for him tonight?" "Yes. Let him stay at a hotel for the night. And see Attorney Li tomorrow." Old Zhou nodded, then left and closed the door behind him. After the footsteps in the corridor faded away, the office fell silent again, with only the hum of the computer cooling fan and the low-frequency white noise from the air conditioner vents. About 35 minutes later, 7 called that it's deciphered. The contents of that subfolder are a copy of 3 consecutive years' worth of regular physical examination records, not the replaced version, but the original, authentic one. Shin somehow obtained the complete data from your first 3 real physical examinations, including blood tests, echocardiograms, and CT scans. The timestamps for this data show that it was acquired in the second half of last year, earlier than when your file was replaced. Lu Hanzhou's fingers tightened around his phone that he was able to get my real physical examination data in the second half of last year. Yes, the source of the acquisition can currently be traced back to the data interface from your annual physical examination at the partner hospital last September. That interface had a temporary access leak at the time, which was captured by an intermediary account and transferred to Carey Consulting's server. After your physical examination, that report should only be visible to you and your attending physician. But the data was intercepted during transmission. Lu Hanzhou closed his eyes briefly. He went on a business trip last September without receiving the final report after his medical checkup. When he returned, he assumed Lin Warner had retrieved it for him. She had said the report was fine and put it in his study drawer. He always thought it was a replaced version, never expecting the original to be intercepted during transmission. What was Shinyu's purpose in uploading that data to the Arbitration Alliance? To question your continued ability to perform your duties as the head of the group, based on the grounds of proving that Lu Hanzhou's long-term concealment of health problems affected the company's decision-making. Although the ruling has been issued, the Arbitration Alliance has a supplementary procedure. If new evidence that can affect the conclusion of the ruling is received within 24 hours of the formal ruling being issued, a review can be initiated. Lu Hanzhou straightened up, left the windowsill, and walked back to his desk to sit down. What are the conditions for initiating a review? It requires proving that the new evidence is directly related to the original ruling and that the original ruling did not cover the related content. If Shinyu's medical examination data is related to your risk of myocardial infarction, it can trigger a review. Your previous replaced electrocardiogram report was forged. But if there are indeed any abnormalities in heart-related indicators in the real medical examination data, the real medical examination data does not show any risk of myocardial infarction. Lu Hanzhou interrupted him. My annual echocardiogram and electrocardiogram are all within the normal range, and my blood indicators are also normal. Is uploading the real data actually proves that I don't have a risk of cryptogenic myocardial infarction, and that the forged report was fabricated out of thin air. There was a pause on the other end of the phone. When Seven's voice rang out again, it had a hint of surprise rising in his voice. You're right. If there are no heart problems in the real medical examination report, then Shinyu uploading it is equivalent to providing reverse confirmation of your main chain of evidence. The existence of the forged file is confirmed, and the forger's motive is clearer. He didn't expect your real data to be so clean. Lu Hanzhou switched the phone to his other ear. When the Arbitration Alliance reviews these uploaded materials, they will see the comparison between the real data and the forged data. Can you confirm whether the compressed file that Shinyu uploaded contains the original images of the echocardiogram and electrocardiogram? It's in the directory preview. The file format is the standard medical imaging format. I can't open the thumbnails, but I can confirm that it exists. That's enough. Tomorrow, when the Arbitration Alliance's technical review team compares them, the differences between the two reports will be clear. When Shinyu uploaded this file, he probably thought my real data would uncover some problems. Seven paused for a moment on the other end of the phone. But there's another matter. The way that real medical examination data was obtained involves the data interface leak last September. If this leak is to be investigated, it might involve the technical team responsible for managing the interface permissions at the time. This team is still employed by Kyushu Group. Lu Hanzhou's fingers stopped on the table. The technical team. He remembered clearly the person responsible for managing the hospital's data interface last September. The head of the terminal maintenance team was named He Yuan, a longtime employee who had worked with him for almost 8 years, since the early days of the company. If the interface He Yuan managed at the time had a leak but hadn't reported it, then his role in this matter deserves further investigation. Was He Yuan's name on that list of 12? No, he wasn't on the list of 12. Lu Hanzhou absorbed this information. He Yuan wasn't on Shun Yu's bribery list, but the data leak did occur on the port he was responsible for. It might have been an unintentional oversight, or he might have been used without knowing it. This needs to be handled separately later. He confirmed one last thing with 7.is Shin Yu at Carey Consulting or somewhere else tonight. He's not at Carey Consulting anymore. About half an hour before the ruling was issued, he left the building without any belongings, wearing only a coat. The car was a ride-hailing service he called temporarily outside the park, and the destination was currently untraceable. He had changed cars midway. After hanging up the phone, Liu Hanzhou sat in his swivel chair and reviewed the entire clue in his mind. The fact that Xinyu had uploaded the real medical examination data to the Arbitration Alliance had actually helped him now that the ruling had been issued, because his real data was indeed normal. Xinyu's actions had become the absurd situation of using real evidence to prove that the other party forged another piece of evidence. However, the potential for interface leakage on He Yuan's side needed to be dealt with as soon as possible. Otherwise, this matter might become new material for Xun Yu or others to use in a propaganda war. He sent a message to Lao Zhou, talk to He Yuan tomorrow morning, and ask him if there were any abnormal access records during the hospital's data interface management period last September. Report back to me after the talk. After sending the message, he glanced at the time, 9:40. The lights of the financial district outside the window were still on, and occasionally a late-night car would streak across the intersection with its red taillights. He took a sealed bag from his drawer and placed it on the table, then opened the electronic version of the arbitration award on the terminal screen. Placing them side by side, a yellowed, blank original electrocardiogram report and a black and white award notice faced each other across the air. One represented a hidden stake planted 3 years ago. The other represented the final outcome, now completely settled. Someone was walking in the corridor outside the office. The footsteps light and quick, like a night shift cleaning staff pushing a cart past. A phone rang once and then went dead on a distant floor. Liu Hanzhou put the sealed bag back in the drawer, locked it, turned off the terminal screen, and stood up. He pushed his chair back under the desk, picked up his suit jacket draped over the back of the chair, and walked out of the office. The corridor lights shone brightly, and the carpet absorbed all the footsteps. He took the elevator downstairs. As he passed the lobby on the first floor, the receptionist called out, "Take care, Mr. Liu," and he nodded in acknowledgement. He pushed open the glass door and stepped into the night air, taking a deep breath of the sultry, sticky July night. The lights of the financial district buildings spread densely overhead. His phone, in his pocket, didn't vibrate with any new messages. That in itself was a signal. He crossed the pedestrian crossing to the roadside and hailed a taxi. After getting into the back seat and giving the name of the hotel, he leaned back and closed his eyes. The car's inertia gently pushed him, the seat fabric brushing against the back of his neck and collar, causing a slight itch. The last leg of the journey tonight flowed slowly through the silent car. Streetlights outside the window swept past one after another, their light and shadow flickering on his closed eyelids. He heard the driver turn on the car radio. A slow song from an older era was playing, a male voice hoarsely singing the line, "You can only see the road you came from when you reach the end." He opened his eyes when the car stopped in front of the Four Seasons Hotel. The neon sign above the hotel entrance glowed warmly in the night. There were no other cars or people at the entrance. He paid the fare, pushed open the door, and stood on the steps looking at the hotel building. The lights on the floor where the banquet hall was located were all off, and the curtains were drawn tightly. The hall that had been filled with white roses and a red carpet this morning was probably empty now. The chairs were stacked up. The crystal chandelier was off, and the flowers on the table were beginning to wilt. He walked through the revolving door. The lobby was softly lit, and the duty manager nodded slightly as he entered. He walked through the lobby toward the elevator, his shoes making a soft, even sound on the marble floor. Before the elevator doors closed, he glanced at his phone screen one last time, 9:58 a.m. No new messages. The doors closed, and the floor numbers began to change. At 6 o'clock on the morning of July 17th, Liu Hanzhou woke up. A narrow ray of morning light pierced through the gap in the curtains, falling on the carpet, and the air carried the faint, clean scent of hotel cleaning products. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, slowly replaying the entire day in his mind, from the wedding in the morning to Carey Consulting in the afternoon, and then to the arbitration ruling in the evening. The time, place, participants, and outcome of each event were clearly linked together. The last link in the chain was the message he had confirmed with 7 around 11 p.m. last night. Xinyu had changed cars midway and gone to a short-term rental apartment in the north of the city. And there was currently no sign of him contacting anyone. He got up to wash, put on a dark blue shirt and gray trousers, and didn't wear a tie. At 7 a.m. sharp, he went downstairs for breakfast, took a cup of black coffee and a sandwich, and sat in a corner of the restaurant by the window. His phone lay quietly on the corner of the table, the screen occasionally lighting up news banners. But none of them were related to yesterday. He used a fork to pick out the fried egg from the sandwich and ate it, leaving the remaining bread untouched next to his plate. Around 7:40 a.m., Lao Zhou sent the first message. He Yuan called me around 11 p.m. last night, saying he might be in trouble. He said that there was indeed an irregular access record to the hospital's data interface last September. He discovered it at the time, but during the investigation, it was bypassed by an intermediary account on Shun Yu's side. He had to go on a business trip before he could report it, and after he returned, the matter was overshadowed by other work. He said he was willing to accept any punishment. After reading this message, Lu Hanzhou replied, "Let him go to work as usual today. No rush. We'll discuss this matter when I get back to headquarters." At 8 o'clock, Attorney Li called. The Arbitration Alliance's technical review team started comparing the medical data uploaded by Shun Yu with the forged report in your main chain of evidence this morning. The conclusion is consistent with my expectations. After the comparison results came out, Shun Yu's uploaded material actually became strong evidence of forgery. The reconsideration procedure will not be initiated, and your ruling has been finalized and effective. Did Shun Yu receive the notification? Yes. The Arbitration Alliance system automatically pushed the finalized and effective notification at 6:30 this morning. At the same time, the status of his business blacklist was also updated, and the status bar said permanently effective. Lu Hanzhou finished the last sip of his coffee, the bottom of the porcelain cup making a soft sound as it tapped against the tray. "What's the status of Lin Wanner's observation list?" "She sent me the severance statement around 2 a.m. last night. It was very detailed, including the time, place, and people involved. I proofread it for her and submitted it this morning. If the review goes smoothly, her name will be removed from the observation list this afternoon." Lu Hanzhou leaned back in his chair and remained silent for 2 seconds. Lin Wanner had stayed up all night to write that statement and submitted it on time. This action itself indicated that she had begun to accept the established facts. Severing her relationship with Shun Yu was currently the only path she could take. Although it was a winding one, at least the direction was right. He confirmed the timelines for the subsequent procedures with Attorney Li, and after hanging up, sat in the restaurant for a while longer. The morning rush hour traffic outside the window was starting to pick up, the sounds of horns and engines becoming a blurred background noise through the glass. He took out his phone and sent a message to 7. "Send me the address of Shun Yu's current short-term rental apartment. Also, confirm if he has any plans to go out today." 5 minutes later, 7 replied, "Room 902, Building 3, Liyuan Community, Xinghua Road, North City." A breakfast delivery arrived at the door around 7 a.m. this morning, and someone answered it inside. No signs of leaving. Also, all the contents of the Gray server's core have been completely extracted and archived, including all his encrypted communication records and financial statements from the past year. They can be accessed at any time if needed. Lu Hanzhou saved the address in his memo. He didn't immediately plan to find Shun Yu. After the final ruling took effect, Shun Yu had lost any ability to launch an effective counterattack. But knowing his location and status would at least provide a reference point for the subsequent cleanup arrangements. At 9 a.m. sharp, he checked out of the hotel. When the taxi arrived at the entrance of the Jiuzhou building, Lao Zhou was standing on the steps waiting for him, holding a printed folder. Mr. Lu, He Yuan is already in the conference room. Also, the department head meeting this morning starts at 9:30 a.m. Do you think we should postpone it? No need to postpone it. Let He Yuan wait in the conference room. I'll talk to him privately after the department meeting. Lu Hanzhou took the folder and walked into the building. The lights in the lobby were brighter than in the early morning, and the receptionist, now in a formal suit, stood ramrod straight. He passed through the access control and entered the elevator. As the floor numbers ticked up, he glanced at the folder Lao Zhou had given him. It was a summary of the handover progress for the 12 people on yesterday's list. Most had completed it, but 3 others were out of town on business and wouldn't finish their procedures until this afternoon. The department head meeting at 9:30 a.m. started earlier than usual. Lu Hanzhou sat at the head of the conference table and gave a brief report on the ruling and subsequent personnel adjustments. Without going into details, he mainly notified three things: that He Yuan's data interface management rights would be temporarily handled by the deputy technical director. The legal department would maintain long-term communication with Attorney Li's team, and all suppliers doing business with companies under Xin Yu's name would undergo a new qualification review. Everyone in the meeting room listened quietly. No one asked questions or talked privately. The sound of chair legs scraping against the floor echoed in the conference room as the crowd filed out, taking most of the noise with them. At 10:20, Lu Hanzhou walked into the conference room where He Yuan was. He Yuan sat against the wall, his hands resting on his knees, his knuckles slightly white. He saw Lu Hanzhou push the door open, his shoulders rising and then sinking back down, his lips moving but no words coming out. Lu Hanzhou sat down opposite him, placing a stack of printed interface access logs in the center of the table, that unusual access record from last September. How long did you investigate after you discovered it? He Yuan licked his lips. About 2 working days. I found the redirect path of that intermediary account, which overlapped with the server of Carry Consulting on Xin Yu's side. I was about to report it to my superiors when I suddenly went on a business trip to the project site in the west of the city. When I came back, the log was automatically archived by the system, and I didn't think about it anymore. How long was the interval? 4 days on the business trip, and then a week of busy project acceptance when I came back. By the time I remembered it, it was already the end of the month. I checked the system logs, and that one was no longer in the pending queue. So I assumed it had been automatically cleaned up by the operations system. Lu Hanzhou raised his hand to interrupt him. Why didn't you investigate the purpose of that access record at the time? Did you drag any data from the interface? He Yuan's Adam's apple bobbed. Yes, you did. That intermediary account pulled down a complete backup of the medical examination report through the interface, which was the one that had just been transmitted. I saw the record of the pull-down action at the time, but assumed it was normal data synchronization from the medical system, until last month when I heard indirectly that Xin Yu might have obtained something. But I had no evidence, so I didn't dare to mention it. Lu Hanzhou watched the twitching of He Yuan's facial muscles as he spoke, not exaggerated, but enough to show how nervous the man was. He Yuan had been with him for 8 years, starting with data management when the tech department only had 3 people in the early days of the startup. He had been promoted twice and received 3 raises, without making any major mistakes. If the source of this interface leak was classified as his improper handling, it would only be considered a management accident. But if it was classified as knowing but not reporting, the nature of the matter would be different. I won't include this in the personnel process for now, Lu Hanzhou said, taking back the access logs from the desktop. Write a complete statement, clearly listing the time the anomaly was discovered, the investigation process, the dates of the business trip, and the dates when you reviewed the logs after returning. Submit it to me tomorrow. He Yuan looked up at him, pursed his lips, and finally spoke. Mr. Lu, I really didn't mean to hide it. I was just too busy that month, with projects, business trips, and family. I know it's useless for me to say this, but I really wasn't with Xin Yu. Lu Hanzhou stood up and tucked the folder under his arm. Write the explanation first. We'll talk about the rest after we've read it. He walked out of the meeting room and closed the door. Sunlight streamed in from the east-facing windows, casting warm yellow patches on the floor. Several employees walked over from the other end, nodding and greeting him before hurrying past along the wall. He paused for 2 seconds, mentally reviewing He Yuan's words and tone, the flustered and regretful pace, the frequent lip-licking, the repeated emphasis on not in cahoots. The combination suggested genuine panic outweighed any pretense. He returned to his office, locked the door, and plugged his phone into the charger. Then he took a sealed bag from his drawer and placed it in the center of his desk, checking the seal's integrity from beginning to end. After finishing, he checked the heart of Kyushu backend logs. All system operation records from last night to this morning were normal, with no abnormal access and no ports being triggered. During his lunch break, he had Laozhou bring in a boxed lunch, which he ate most of with tea. The sunlight outside the window softened slightly from its midday intensity, and the streets below grew busier as people strolled across the zebra crossing during their lunch break. He ate while glancing at the summaries of Shun Yu's encrypted communication records in the gray server archive sent by Seven. Mostly conversations with Lin Warner over the past 6 months discussing equity transfers, transfer confirmations with the appraisal center administrator, and communication instructions with Zhao Ming and his legal insiders. After reading them all, he closed the archive. There was no need to look anymore. At 2 p.m., Attorney Lee sent a confirmation. Lin Warner had been removed from the observation list, and the system status had been updated to no abnormal records. 2 minutes later, another message arrived from Lin Warner herself, containing only one line: declaration approved. Thank you. Lu Hanzhou didn't reply after reading the message. He put his phone face down on the table and continued working on his tasks. His afternoon schedule included checking the quarterly budget adjustments with the finance department at 2:30, confirming the access control reset plan with the technology department at 3:40, and a brief online meeting with a partner at 5 o'clock. His schedule was packed, but each task was routine. Compared to yesterday's nerve-wracking pace, it felt like a completely different world. At 2:25, as he got up to get water, he passed the window and saw the skyline of the financial district appear smooth and quiet in the afternoon light. The blue signal lights on the roof of the Kyushu building were dim in the sunlight. Not until evening. He stood by the window for a while, holding his water glass, his mind blank, just watching the people and cars on the street below move, intersect, and merge into different directions like miniature models. His phone vibrated on the table. He went back to pick it up. It was 7. Xinyu left Liyuan Community at 1:50 p.m., carrying a handbag. The taxi was heading towards the Chengdong Industrial Park, but the passenger got off at a bus stop under the Cross River Bridge and has remained stationary in that area. The contents of the bag are unknown. Lu Hanzhou put down his water glass. The bus stop under the Cross River Bridge is an open area with no buildings or shops around. Only a bus stop sign and a bench. Xinyu's trip there doesn't seem to be to meet anyone. It's more like he's looking for a place without blind spots and surveillance or interference to do something simple. He replied to 7. Continue watching remotely. Don't get close. Don't move for as long as he stays there. After replying, he placed his phone on the edge of the desktop and returned to the budget verification interface in the finance department to continue typing numbers. He scrolled down the Excel spreadsheet, row by row, the income and expenditure figures highlighting in light blue as the cursor hovered over them. He stopped to take a sip of water when he reached the 3rd page, noticing it was cold but not paying much attention. By 4:30 p.m., when he finished all his scheduled tasks, the sun outside was already setting, the light shifting from white to a warm orange hue. He leaned back in his swivel chair, closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again and picked up his phone. 7 had updated his message an hour earlier. Xinyu stopped at the bus stop for about 40 minutes before taking the bus back, heading north of the city. His handbag was empty when he got off. A small amount of ash was found in the trash can next to the bus stop. Lu Hanzhou finished reading the message. Xinyu burned something, perhaps the last batch of paper materials he had, or perhaps some personal items that held sentimental value for him. Whatever it was, the action signified that he was making some kind of cleanup. He added the message to his read archive. The cold air from the air conditioner vents continued to blow, and the office was quiet. He glanced at the sealed bag on his desk, then at the setting sun outside the window, and picked up his phone to dial Lao Zhou's number. Schedule a moving company for me tomorrow morning. I have some documents in my office drawer that need to be moved to the archives. Lao Zhou responded on the other end of the phone. Okay, Mr. Liu, is there anything else you need to tell me? No, you've worked hard today. Go home early. After hanging up the phone, he put the sealed bag back into the drawer and locked it. He stood up and pushed the chair back under the desk. The office light was still on. He went over and turned it off. As he reached the door, he glanced back. The desktop was clean. The computer screen was black, and a beam of orange-red sunset shone through the half-open curtains onto the back of the chair. He left the office and closed the door behind him. As the elevator descended, he stood in the corner, watching the floor numbers jump down one by one. The only sound the soft friction of the cable. Reaching the 1st floor, he stepped out into the lobby. The sky outside the glass doors was bathed in the warm hues of evening. The clouds low and thin, their edges tinged with a golden red by the setting sun. He stood on the steps, not moving immediately. The evening rush hour traffic moved slowly along the main road ahead, red taillights forming a broken chain of light stretching to the distant intersection. Someone pushed a bicycle across the pedestrian crossing, its bell ringing once. The automatic door of the convenience store across the street opened and closed once, and someone emerged carrying a bag. Lu Hanzhou put his hands in his pockets and walked down the steps, merging into the sparse pedestrians on the sidewalk. The evening breeze blew from the direction of the river, carrying a hint of moisture and the lingering heat of the asphalt after a day's work. His pace was neither fast nor slow, his shoes tapping rhythmically on the brick pavement. While waiting for the red light at the intersection, he took out his phone and glanced at it. There were no new message notifications on the screen. The notification bar only showed summaries of a few work emails received that afternoon. He put his phone back. The indicator light turned from red to green, and he crossed the zebra crossing with the crowd. The roadside trees across the street swayed their leaves in the evening breeze. A pigeon landed on the curb, glanced at the pedestrians, and flew away. Lu Hanzhou continued walking along the sidewalk for a while, then turned at the next intersection, his figure blending into the endless stream of people in the evening, gradually swallowed by the twilight into an ordinary silhouette in the distance. The signal lights on the roof of the Kyushu building lit up in the last rays of the setting sun, their blue light hanging steadily against the darkening sky, like an eye finally closing halfway.